Welcome aboard a Tuesday edition of the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video on the X platform, YouTube at Mike Gill Show. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning has the day off today, which means you and I hanging out together. Got a lot on our mind today, including Max Kepler. First spring home run for the Phillies. You know, he's a guy we don't talk a whole heck of a lot about. What can he add to this lineup? We'll talk to Bob Wankel at 3 o'clock today. Max Kepler signed a one-year, $10 million deal in the offseason. And not too much fanfare, right? Not a lot of people excited about Max Kepler when they signed him. But we'll dive into the lineup today because there was an interesting lineup today. In fact, it's the lineup that I've kind of coalesced more or less for a while. If the Phillies were to change up their lineup, the lineup that was the top four today is the lineup that I essentially have been campaigning for this particular lineup. We'll get to that in just a little bit here on the Sports Bash. Stick around for that. Also today, you've got a interesting move by the Eagles yesterday. Darius Slay, he gets released. But today, his former partner from the 2022 Super Bowl team that did not win that Super Bowl but advanced to the Super Bowl, James Bradberry, he got released today as well. So now both of the players that were your secondary starters for the Super Bowl just a couple of seasons ago, they have been released. So James Bradberry released, and somebody texted in yesterday, why not Bradberry? Why are they getting rid of Slay first? Now, it's a good question. If you're going to release Bradberry today, why not have him yesterday as a part of it with Darius Slay? I can't answer the question as to the timing. I really don't know why one yesterday, the other one today, but we'll talk to John McMullen about the new look coming, and it's coming. I mean, the secondary for the Eagles could be different. I mean, is Darius Slay coming back? Bradberry wasn't really here this year. He was hurt, missed the whole season. He'll be 32. He'll be a post-June 1st cut, and that means that the Eagles will definitely have at least, Bradberry didn't play last year, so he was not a part of the team, but Slay and Bradberry, both those guys gone. Now, Bradberry had a lot of interesting, nice things to say on the way out the door. There was a lot of people said that he kind of acted as another coach this past year, but he's expected to be ready for OTAs. He should have some people that are interested to see if he can still play. I would imagine that somebody will bring him in to see if he can play corner. But yesterday you released Darius Slay. Today, James Bradberry. So, really, the Eagles starting the transformation from Super Bowl champion to the next phase. And I know Bradberry's not a big deal, but you now have two key veterans from a couple of years ago who are no longer here. And it really changes the dynamic. Fletcher Cox is gone. James Bradberry is gone. Darius Slay is gone. What happens with Brandon Graham? Most likely he is gone. So the realization kicks in. You've won a Super Bowl, and things are about to change. And we talk about things that could change, as Dan Graziano reported yesterday. The Panthers look like they could be going after a guy, big names in free agency on the defensive side. Mike Vrabel, he's a defensive-minded guy. He wants to get some talent, and he could go after defensive tackle Milton Williams. According to Dan Graziano at ESPN, the Panthers, quote, might be one of the teams willing to spend big to lure Milton Williams away from the Eagles. So we know that Milton Williams is going to have a lot of suitors out there, right? We just know that he's going to get paid a lot of money. And I guess you start Monday by finding out who's here, who's gone. I think we ultimately find out that Milton Williams will be one of the first guys to go. When you talk about NFL free agency, it's different than baseball free agency, where the big names, they go early and they go often. The big names don't sit around waiting and waiting and waiting. Those big names get the offers right away. By Monday, we should know where Milton Williams where Zach Bond, where Josh Sweat, where Mekhi Becton may or may not be. So there's the first domino there. So there's the Eagles news as we start today. Sixers, they lost last night. Kudos to them, figuring out that losing is probably a better option for them. I have been talking about this for a few years, going back to the process. Now, I was a fan of the process, and I say to this day I would do it again. But what I don't like is the NBA rewarding losing as opposed to winning. And I've talked about this for years. Why would a league reward you for willingly wanting to lose? It's a bad product. What you watch the last 20 games of the season, it's a bad product when you have to watch a game and not hope your team wins. Right? How do you watch a game as a sports fan? How are you a league where you have, I don't know, let's see, how many teams right now are in a position where they really don't have a lot of interest in winning, or I don't say a lot of interest, no interest in winning. Right now, if you are a fan of Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Toronto, Charlotte, Washington, really Chicago, Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, those teams, and then over in the West, if you're a fan of Utah, New Orleans, San Antonio, Portland, and Phoenix, now Dallas, probably Minnesota, Sacramento, you're not really interested in winning games. I think the NBA needs to get rid of this play-in tournament. We're acting like this play-in tournament thing is some like, yes, we made the play-in tournament. Like, I know a couple of years ago that a team made it to the NBA Finals, the Miami Heat. But let's be honest. Most fan bases are not yearning to land in the play-in tournament. I've pitched this before, and I'll pitch it again. Let's scrap the play-in tournament, get rid of that stupid play-in thing that nobody cares about. Top 8 teams make the playoffs, and then teams 9, 10, 11, they have the best odds for the ping pong balls on both sides. If you finish in 9th in the West and 9th in the East, you have the same amount of percentages. Same as 10. The 10th team in the East, the 10th team in the West, and down you go. So the two teams that finish 9th in the conferences have whatever the ping pong odds are right now for the worst team in the league. So you essentially would have the 2 9s, the 2 10s, the 2 11s, the 2 12s, and so on all the way down. So in other words, if you're the worst team in the league, that's being stuck in purgatory. You don't want to be the worst team in the league. You want to go up the chain, not down the chain. So right now, if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves, you're in the 9th spot. So you would be the first team out of the playoffs. Well, the Minnesota Timberwolves, if you win, okay, I make the playoffs. I could be the 8th seed. I could be the 7th seed. Heck, they could go up to 6 right now. They're only a half game behind Golden State. Now, people might say, well, teams might not want to be 6, 7, 8. The point is, Utah doesn't want to be last. New Orleans doesn't want to be last. San Antonio, and they're all trying to win games. Teams are trying to win to go up the standings instead of trying to lose to drop down the standings. The NBA product is brutal when you're watching a game as a Sixers fan, and I have no interest in trying to win that game last night. I have no interest in trying to win the game tonight against Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota, if they want to be in the play-in, great. They win tonight, it puts them in a better position to be in one of the top 10 spots. But if Minnesota's playing, you also have to keep winning to make sure that you don't fall down the standings. Right now, on the other side of things, and people would say, like, okay, well, what if you're the worst team? Well, that's your problem. Washington, figure out a way to get out of there. You shouldn't be rewarded for being lousy by getting the first pick or the second pick or the third pick. But the teams that keep winning, and what it would do is it would bring the middle of the pack and challenge the top of the pack. So if you have a team that's 9, 10, or 11, and they're like a 500 team, but they end up with the first, second, third pick, now you're giving them a player that can make that team go from 9 potentially into the top 3 or 4. So it pushes the league, the competitiveness of the league, and it should have more solid teams instead of constantly putting your best players in your league on the worst teams in the league. You want your best players in the league, your newest best players, to quickly be on the big stage. That's the best way for the NBA to market these players, to get these teams relevant quickly, and get rid of what we watched last night, which is Philadelphia, a team that has 21 wins, playing Portland, a team that is essentially not interested in winning all that much, although give Portland credit, they've been playing a little bit better recently. When you're playing at this stage of the season, think about this. Right now, Philadelphia is 21-39. I think most people listening are resigned that they don't want them to win any more games. I think you would rather – look, you know what's funny? If they lost out, you would complain and bemoan the fact how embarrassing they are. And at the same breath, you would say, but I don't even want them to win. So you would basically rip them for losing every game, and then in the same breath say, well, I don't even want them to win. So they can't win no matter what they do here. They play Minnesota tonight. Minnesota's a better team than them on the road. They're at Boston on Thursday. Utah's the worst team in the league, or one of the worst teams in the league. Atlanta's playing for a play-in. Toronto stinks. Indiana's in the playoffs. Dallas is in big trouble. That game's on ABC. I got to imagine that game's getting pulled. Kyrie just got hurt. They traded Luka. No Embiid. I would imagine the Sunday, March 16 game is likely going to get pulled off of ABC. They play Houston, who's really good. They got Oklahoma City, who should win the NBA title this year. San Antonio has no interest in winning. Atlanta's in the – I mean, you got one. New Orleans is horrible. Washington's horrible. Miami's no good. Toronto stinks. Miami's no good. Washington stinks. And then the last game of the year, they play Chicago. Neither Chicago or Philadelphia has any interest in winning that game. But if they could win that game to move from the 12th worst team to the 10th worst team, that would be a big game for those two teams. It would be a shot in the arm to a league that drastically needs something. You can't have a league that is filled with teams who have no business or no desire to win. All right, quick breaking news here. According to Adam Schefter, the Philadelphia Eagles and Saquon Barkley have agreed to a 2-year contract extension. It is a 2-year, $41 million deal. It will make him the highest paid running back in NFL history. So 2 extra years now for Saquon Barkley, and we'll get into that in just a second because, all right, so Barkley, obviously, it's the best free agent signing potentially in NFL history. You sign the guy, he gets a monster season with 2,000 yards. So let's break down the significance of this deal. And McMullen's going to join me in 15 minutes, so this will be perfect timing for all of it. I'll give you my thoughts on this because I'm very intrigued by this deal. So the 76ers went to Joel Embiid when they didn't have to and gave him an extension. It did not work out so far. Do we feel that the Eagles did this to reward him? Do we feel that this makes their cap situation better. He's the highest paid running back in NFL history. There you go. He's the first $20 million a year running back, number 2. So that's 2 things. He also has the ability to earn an extra $15 million in incentives and escalators. The deal includes $36 million fully guaranteed at signing. So this is rare. They're extending Barkley 1 year into a 3-year deal. Now, remind you, let's keep this in mind. Saquon Barkley is not a 25-year-old guy. You know, this is one of those situations where Barkley's awesome. He's a huge part of your team. You don't want to even think about, like, him getting hurt. But is it necessary that they did this deal right now? 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. What is your guys' take on the fact that they're going to sign Saquon Barkley? Not going to. They have signed Saquon Barkley to a 2-year, $41 million contract extension. It's a pretty big deal, man. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, a lot of guarantees. And this is where the Eagles generally outdo these other teams because they're willing to put the money way up front. $36 million, I think I said on the signing bonus. He's getting that money up front. So it doesn't affect the cap situation. And now you look at Saquon Barkley. I'm trying to get how old Barkley is. I think Barkley is 28 years old? Right? Is Barkley 28 years old? Let's see. Barkley right now is 28. Yes, he just turned 28. So Barkley just turned 28 years old. So, yeah, I mean, you're at that moment where you're wondering to yourself, hey, is he going to slow down at that 30-year-old mark? Is he going to slow down, in that situation? As Jeff is watching on YouTube, says, Barkley's in great shape. He takes care of his body. I'm sure he loves running behind this offensive line. He deserves that contract. Jeff, 100%. Listen, nobody's saying he didn't deserve. Well, for what he did this year alone, he deserves that contract. But as we know in professional sports, sometimes you have to project. And part of the projection is age-related and injury-related. So if you are somebody that says, hey, Saquon Barkley just had a 2,000-yard season, in which in that 2,000-yard season, he had a career high 345 carries. Are the 345 carries going to show at some point? And we talk about who's the poster child for this, right? DeMarco Murray. DeMarco Murray played in Dallas. He had 1,800 yards with the Cowboys. He had 392 carries that year. 392. Not too many more than Saquon Barkley had. And then the next year in Philadelphia, he was a shell of himself. So that's all. That's all. I'm just putting that out there. Putting that out there, right? I think if you read the tea leaves here, does this set something else up? Tony's watching on the YouTube channel. He says, with this extension, money will be available to get Garrett. Yeah, we're going to talk about that, Tony. What does this signify? All right, 609-403-0973. Let me read up a couple of texts here and get your thoughts. Mike, I can't imagine Saquon Barkley having a better year or more comparable year as last year, so I don't understand why they would extend him. Now, interesting take there. Yeah, that's kind of one of the thoughts that I have. Is you just got the best season out of Barkley. Are you ever going to get a better season than that? So why I love the decision as a business. We all want the business that we work for to appreciate you and say, hey, man, you did a great job. We're rewarding you for that. That's a fairy tale. Nobody is having that happen to them generally. So Saquon Barkley is living the fairy tale. He has a business, a company, the Philadelphia Eagles, who actually recognize his work, acknowledge that he did a good job, and said, hey, great job, we're going to give you more money. It's not the world I live in, that's for sure. That is not the world that I live in. So Saquon Barkley is living in the world that we all wish. Hey, man, great job you do. We appreciate you. Here's more money. The thing is, in that job, you depreciate pretty quickly. Saquon Barkley depreciates. And I'm not trying to be like Mr. Poo-Poo this deal here, but that guy's text message, I think, is spot on. You just got the best year you ever got out of Saquon Barkley. Is he actually going to be better? More text messages. Mike, I think at face value, it's not smart. But this, to me, sounds like Howie made a promise to Barkley in the initial deal last year. I feel like it was kind of Howie saying, we'll take care of you, then win it all, and Howie has to keep his word. I don't know. I mean, that contract that he got was already a pretty big deal. It's not like he said, hey, I lowballed you to come here and play. So I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know that I agree with that. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Yeah, Saquon Barkley had an unbelievable year. If I was to ask you guys right now, do you think Saquon Barkley tops that year? Is he better than 2,005 yards, 13 touchdowns, 345 carries? Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, even if he has 1,800 yards rushing next year, he's not better than he was this year. I mean, come on. But, hey, he just got paid. And listen, as I said, good for him, man. And good for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are a franchise that you just don't see in this world anymore. Hey, you did a great job. Here you go. Here's a 2-year, $41 million extension. He got a 3-year, $37 million deal last year. So he gets 2 extra years and $41.2 million with $36 million at signing. And he has another opportunity to add $15 million. Woo. 609-403-0973. Your reaction, I'll read off your text messages when we come back here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. John McMullen, perfect time for McMullen. We actually scheduled him earlier than normal today, and this all happened just as we said it. I'm kind of intrigued by some of the text messages that are coming in. So, are you a fan of the Eagles extending Saquon Barkley? 609-403-0973, Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Like, subscribe, download the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City, and take the Sports Bash everywhere you go. When we come back, why did they extend Saquon Barkley now? What's the message? We'll ask John McMullen from Birds 365 and Sports Illustrated next. All right, 2:30, breaking news. Saquon Barkley has got a 2-year extension, $41 million, 36 guaranteed, 2 more years, 4 in total now for Saquon Barkley. Why now? What does it mean? My good buddy John McMullen, Birds 365. Well, John, we didn't know that this was going to be a topic of conversation today. But how surprising is the timing of Saquon Barkley getting this extension right now?
Yeah, it's rare to put it that way. If you think about the Eagles signed him to the contract last year, and the new league year hasn't started yet, so he got a new deal inside the same league year in which they signed him to the original contract. So that does not happen very often. And, it's part of the philosophy of the Eagles to pay players for performance. I think a lot of it has to do with sort of showing to the rest of the NFL that they will reward players with basically, cash up front, and that'll get noticed by others around the league. So it's just a good way of doing business. I think it's, I talk about the NFL, not the only one. We all talk about the NFL being a copycat league. Nobody copies the right things. These are the things other teams should be copying that the Eagles do. And they generally extend players a year before players they want, a year before other teams even think about it.
Right.
And nobody's picked up on it. And it's surprising to me.
Yeah. Why now? I know it just happened, but is there, I would imagine you got $36 million up front. I mean, does this free them up to make some moves? People are texting in. Does this mean a Garrett type of move? When you read the tea leaves on why now, why this move on March 4th, does that signify something else, or is it just, no, they're just a good organization, and put it this way, my boss ain't coming to me and saying, you know what, Mike Gill, we really appreciate you. Here's more money.
No.
Like, I'm sure for you either. So what gives here?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with Myles Garrett. It's just what I said. They like to reward players that perform, and they do it early, and they identify it early. They evaluate. They trust their evaluation, and that signals to players, impending free agency. But if you want to look at it from a standpoint of roster building. Again, back last summer, I kind of joked that, the Eagles' plan seemed to be, we're going to pay everybody on offense and we're going to let Vic figure it out on defense. It kind of worked. And I think it's going to continue, to be honest, because I do think you're probably going to lose Milton Williams or Josh Sweat in free agency. They're hopeful to get Zach Bond back. Obviously, Darius Slay is moving on. James Bradberry, a little bit lesser, obviously didn't play this past season, but, it's more let's play youth, and Vic will figure it out on defense, and we're going to pay the offensive stars.
John McMullen, Birds 365, weekday mornings, 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. Saquon Barkley gets a huge deal here. I guess we're getting a lot of text messages of people asking why. He just had 2,000 yards, 345 carries. Some people wondering, hey, can he top that year? And if not, why approach him now?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, the history is the history when it comes to backs who touch it as much as Saquon did this year, and it's generally not pretty. The closest comparison would be to the guy he broke his record, Terrell Davis, who had back-to-back years of just super production and super number of touches. Typically, if you go back to Eagles fans, will be familiar with the great year DeMarco Murray had in Dallas, and they kind of ran him into the ground. The Eagles signed him.
395 carries that year, and the next year he came to Philly and basically did nothing.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's not positive from a traditional standpoint, but it has been done in the past with TD, Terrell Davis. So, you're hopeful. It's still, a short-term philosophy for the Eagles. But, they wanted to reward the player. I think it has more to do with that than and the part, the sort of extra emphasis on that part is it's noticed by every agent and every player around the league. And if push comes to shove, they're going to push people in the Eagles' direction because they say, look, they're going to reward you here. And everybody else has got this conventional, well, we'll address that when we have to address it type of mentality. The Eagles have done this pretty consistently. Again, they basically extend players a year before everybody else does.
Yes.
Or everybody else is thinking about it. And I think that's noticed by people around the league.
So you look at this extension. He gets $36 million at signing. It's 2 years, 41. That means he's here for 4 more years. He signed through the 2028 season. He's the highest paid running back, $20 million. He'll be 31, I guess, at the end of this deal. Where is that in terms of your mind, in terms of where running backs generally are?
Well, remember, the numbers you're getting right now are agent-driven, and you got to wait and see when the contract gets filed. It's going to look much better on paper for the Eagles than it does right now. That you're seeing initial reports. There's going to be voidable years on the end. It wouldn't surprise me if they gain cap space by doing this. That's just sort of how they do things, and they're giving. Again, the player perspective, they're getting the upfront cash, which is what they want. Ultimately, if I were to bet, it's going to be just a 2-year deal that they give money, and if need be, they can get out of it in year 3. That's generally how they do it.
Right.
And so, yeah, I wouldn't get too caught up on these. And then this is, something to keep in mind as the new league year does start on March 12th. You're going to see all these numbers, and then almost every single one of them will come in later after the actual contract is filed, and it doesn't look quite as impressive as it does when the first numbers released, which are completely, as I said, agent-driven.
Yeah, so you get the player rewarded with upfront cash pretty much. He gets that $36 million signing bonus. As you mentioned, it kind of gets noticed throughout the league. We'll see what it means for the cap and what that does for this particular offseason, including Monday when that all will be underway. We'll start to find out if that helped them out once the numbers kind of break themselves out here. So they give this deal to Barkley today. They also cut James Bradberry today and Slay yesterday. So I thought it was odd that Bradberry today and Slay yesterday. Why not both at the same time, or Bradberry before Slay? But whatever. They're both gone. What does that mean?
Well, they're not gone yet.
Well, I said I say they're both gone so cavalierly. Yeah. I guess Slay has indicated he would like to come back, but there's a whole another line of questioning I can get into with him.
Yeah, I think there's a misunderstanding. You can't do any of this stuff before March 12th. So, the Eagles have indicated, have told Slay they're going to release him. And the same thing with Bradberry, and they're going to release him on March 12th. Now, in the case of Bradberry, that's not that big of a deal because he's actually going to be released. But we went through this with Slay in 2023, and I still think there's a chance that between now and March 12th that the two sides agree to get back together, and all of a sudden that goes poof up in smoke because if nothing's filed, that's just the Eagles have essentially said, hey, if you can go to Detroit or somebody somewhere else and get a better deal than, say, 1 year and whatever, 8 to 10 million, that maybe you can come back here, Godspeed. And if you can't, and remember, the age comes into it. I get it from Slay's standpoint because he played so well last year, but he's 34 years old. I don't know how much interest there's going to be around the league to pay a 34, going to turn 35 on New Year's Day next year, corner. It's just, if you look at Stephon Gilmore's the best example. He was actually even more accomplished if you think about it from a standpoint than Slay, as far as former Defensive Player of the Year, former All-Pro, multi-time All-Pro, that kind of stuff. But he's 34, 35, in the same age range. He's been on the 1-year deal, moving around the league, and he continues to play well, for his age, and he contributes. But I think that's the stage Slay has entered, and seems like he wants more money than teams are going to be willing to give him at this stage of his career.
Are you surprised, John? I'm going through my text messages as we're having this conversation. A lot of people not overly excited about this deal because of the age, the fact that he ran for 2,000 yards. I'm talking about, obviously, Barkley. And it's like people have this thing that's like, hey, he ran for 2,000 yards. Why are you paying him? He's never going to do that again.
Well, I think people are getting caught up in those original numbers. And, it's
by the way, $15 million in incentives as well that he can also achieve.
Yeah. I guarantee it doesn't look as massive as it does. I guarantee it. I go through this every year. I've been doing this for a long time. People get enamored with those first numbers, and the contract comes in, and it doesn't look as it's a 2-year deal. I can't say that with 100%. I can almost guarantee it.
So when you say that, you're saying it's a 2-year deal. Essentially, you're thinking they approach him and that the Eagles are benefiting from this in some capacity. We just don't know yet.
Oh, God, yeah. That I can say with 100%.
I'm just, because how he approaches him, it's like the man said, I got this great idea. I'm going to give you $36 million up front, $41 million 2-year deal. It looks like he's here for 4 more years, but that might not necessarily be the case.
No. And if everything works out and he continues to play at that level, which is unlikely, as people have pointed out, you do have those levers where you can probably get to the 4th year. Although even that, I would guarantee, and I'm saying this all without seeing the contract, I guarantee there's going to be a renegotiation before year 4, just as there was here. If he continues to play at a high level, which I think most people are right. It's probably not going to happen. We just talked about it. We mentioned the history of running backs. I think the best case is you have one more big year, and probably it starts to go in a negative direction just by the history of touches and all that kind of stuff. But it's not. The Eagles will not be locked into this deal for 4 years. That I can guarantee.
All right, John, I'm going to go back to Slay real quick. He had said on the Amon-Ra St. Brown Brothers podcast, which is titled the St. Brown Brothers podcast, that he would like to play one more.
Equanimous. I can't even say his name. I can never say
Equimonious.
His name.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what? I never put them together. I never put 2 and 2 together that they were actually brothers, because Josh told me yesterday there's a third brother.
Yeah, there is. I don't know.
Equimonious, St. Brown from Green Bay.
Yeah, he was a hell of a college. He was actually better in college than Amon was.
Well, on the podcast, Slay says he wants to play for sure 1 more year. Phillies his preferred choice, Detroit his other. Do you think they're the only 2, or does, if neither one of them offered, does he open up and go somewhere else, or is he okay? Because he just said, I want to play 1 more for sure. Do the Eagles give him a Brandon Graham type deal? Hey, here you go. If you want to come back, great. If not, we understand.
Yeah, that's what I think they're hoping for.
So they legitimately would want him to come back.
Yeah, I don't think they would be against it to have 1 more. He played at a very high level last year. I think people don't kind of realize that. And it was unexpected to a certain degree. Again, when he talked about 34 turning into 35-year-old corners, it generally doesn't work that way, but he played at a high level. The championship window is open. if you can actually get him back at a lesser number, which is what they'd be doing, whether it's 8 to 10 million, I would think it would be in that range. Why not? One more year and that's it. I think that would be an astute way to go about it from both ends. But it seems like Slay wants more money than that and doesn't, because of the way he's played, believes he should be compensated more. And I don't blame him, but I just don't see anybody else going in that direction because nobody's going to want to go into the 13, 14 million range for a guy who's going to be 35 before the end of next season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and you're also, I don't know, do they like Isaiah Rodgers? Is it Ringo, or do they have to go outside the organization? Do they move to Cooper DeJean there? Then you got to figure out what you're going to do at slot. There's a lot of dominoes here all of a sudden.
Yeah, they got a bunch of options in-house. I mean, Cooper can move outside, which people do not like the idea of. Kaylee Ringo would be the home run if he sort of seized the job. If Slay doesn't agree to come back, they're going to be able to re-sign Isaiah Rodgers. He's not going to get a ton of money. So, they can – and don't forget Eli Ricks. He's a guy that kept around for 2 years because they believe he's a good cover corner. And they'll go into training camp and they'll let probably those three guys, because I do think if Slay leaves that they will get Rodgers back. They'll let those three guys compete and let the best man win. Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of options. I don't think they need to go outside the organization.
All right, John McMullen with the breaking news today. There you go. Saquon Barkley, 2-year, $41 million. He gets $36 million in guarantees. That's a great boss to have. Hey, man, you had a great year. Here you go. Here's more money.
The boss is he's playing chess up there. Trust me. There's some stuff the Eagles got as well.
Yeah. Well, a lot of text messages coming in. I'm going to get to them on the other side. But John had John on a little earlier today than normal, but it worked out. And you could see me tomorrow morning at 8:20. We'll talk, I would imagine, about Saquon Barkley tomorrow on Birds.
Yeah, it'll probably come up.
Birds 365 tomorrow morning, 8:20. Catch me on their Jacob Media YouTube channel. All right, John, thanks, buddy.
All right, see you, man.
There's John, and he's back, of course, here on the Sports Bash as the offseason is here. We'll tap into John throughout it. When free agency is open on Monday, we are talking about it, but the football never ends. We got football at 4 coming up. Eagles offseason coverage here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN with John McMullen right there. Coming up, Bob Wankel's going to talk some Phils. Rick Saratella on the NFL Draft Tuesday here on the Sports Bash. Knicks Nuggets, Ryan Rothstein for Ryer Sy. How about you guys out there? 609-403-0973. More Sports Bash coming up. All right, Sports Bass Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Coming up, Bob Wankel in on the Phils. We'll get some takes on the lineup today, something Trea Turner said about hitting leadoff that stood out to me. I want to tell you about my friends over at the Nizam's Indian Restaurant. Yeah, great night for a little dinner tonight. Route 40 EHT, right there in the Boscov's parking lot. South Jersey's best Indian restaurant. I was talking to Dr. Roy just last night, and we're talking about meeting up and hanging out over there for a great dinner. They do a great job over there hosting your event, complete food catering services, private party, corporate event, or just a night out with the family for dinner. They're open 7 days a week. Make tonight the night you try the Nizams. They're ranked the number 2 best restaurant in the state of New Jersey by NJ.com.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
All right, 3 o'clock hour, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe and watch the show. Download the free mobile app in the Apple Store, Google Play. Listen on your phone. Bob Wankel's here to talk a little Phils. On a day when the Eagles kind of stole the show, as they generally do, whenever something's going on, they say, the heck with the Phillies, man. Talk about the Eagles. I got to say, Bob Wankel, Saquon Barkley gets a massive deal, but I'm a little surprised. My text board is blowing up today with people scratching their heads. Why pay this man? Why pay this man? You know what I mean? It's like we all yearn for our boss to come to us and say, I appreciate you. The Eagles say that to this man, and now they're getting ripped for it.
Well, listen, I thought I was going to get a text message from you around 2:35 saying, look, you got bumped. We got to go birds here at 3 o'clock now. So,
well, normally, so the funny part is, McMullen is generally in 3 o'clock, but there wasn't a lot of Eagles, so we kind of shifted it around, and it worked out perfectly that John was right there right when it happened. And now I know the Eagles fan that you are. Are you surprised, though, that the Philly fans out there are like, why would you pay this man? He just gave you 2,000 yards. You're never going to get a season better than that.
Yeah, Eagles don't typically pay for past performance, but, I mean, the obvious and the most significant benefit to the Eagles is they clear up about $6 million in cap space in the immediate term by doing this extension. So though you are giving him the $20 million a year and you make him the highest paid running back in the history of the NFL, you actually do clear some cap space in the more immediate, which will give Howie Roseman a little bit more flexibility. And then the other part of it too, and I think that this is important, Eagles are a perennial contender, and I think that they've become a little bit of a destination for players. And I don't think it goes unnoticed around the league that when you do a deal like this and you reward players immediately for significant contributions, that agents and players don't see that and say, hey, I want to go play for that organization. Howie Roseman's a guy that if I take care of my business, he's going to take care of me. And I think that all of that kind of comes together, and it's part of the reason Eagles do these things.
Well, and, listen, the Phillies have doled out their share of contracts as well, $300 to Trea Turner, over $300 to a guy like Bryce Harper. So the Phillies have kind of become a place, too, where people want to play, the crowd, the atmosphere. But as we know, we've been talking about, there's a lot here. So I want to start with this. I know they didn't score a lot today, but today was the Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber lineup that I've been kind of throwing out there for a while. I know they've been going all over the place with this, but Trea Turner was asked on the MLB Network about hitting leadoff, and he has said, it's not set in stone, but I'd be happy to do it. In 2019, he hit leadoff for the Nationals. They won the World Series. So ultimately, is that the best way to maximize Trea Turner?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, Trea Turner has to produce, and that's the biggest part about all of this. Like, look, we have this conversation about lineups, and you hear me say, I don't know. It really, to me, it's just about the collective whole and not so much the tinkering of the order. But the bottom line is Trea Turner just has to be better. And if he is better, then hitting him leadoff is definitely the way for them to go. I just wonder if he's going to ever really be the guy that you thought you were getting when you gave him the $300 million deal. I mean,
let's start there. Let's start there. In your mind, is he ever a $300 million player?
No, but at the time, I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and kill the Phillies for doing it. They had an obvious need. He was a tremendously productive player. He fit that need. I understand why they did it. I would say so much so that he's not a guy that's bulky. He's a little bit more wiry. He's more of an athlete. The wisdom at the time was that he would age well, that his body was kind of immune to these breakdowns. And look, the problem here is that he just hasn't hit with any consistency, and it's March 4th right now. And this is a really tough time of the year, in my opinion, to talk about baseball, because 2 weeks ago, you're kind of just like, all right, we're back. We're in Clearwater. Things are getting started. What are the storylines? And then as you get closer to the regular season starting, you look at what is the roster going to look like? Who's going to be the last guy off the bench, the last guy in the bullpen? And you start to finalize things. On March 4th, it's really tough because it's hard to make judgments about what you're seeing on the field right now. But I will say, Trea Turner is 0 for 10 so far this spring with 5 strikeouts. And I'm not necessarily saying that means anything. I know well enough to suggest that spring training statistics are generally meaningless, especially on March 4th. But it just sort of illustrates the point further that he has to produce or it doesn't work.
It really doesn't work if he doesn't produce, especially at the top of the lineup. And I guess that then means, what do you do with Schwarber? What do you do with Harper? What do you do with Bohm? I mean, that's the next configuration there. How do you maximize all of it? Because the team has won with Schwarber hitting leadoff. Does that automatically mean if you move him, they're not a good team? I would say no, but where is the best spot to maximize and get the most value out of him? Because I believe that hitting Turner first is the right thing.
I do too. I think that when you look at their problems protecting Bryce Harper when you get to the postseason against the league competition, it's obviously been a flaw of theirs that's been exposed. So I think that this season or this offseason, when you evaluate what do we have, how do we line these guys up, we know we have to do something a little bit different here. And this makes the most sense. This is where I would start going into the season myself. I like the configuration that they went with today. Prefer Harper in the 2 backed by Bohm and then Schwarber. I think it gives you a little bit more, you get the right-left balance through there. I just prefer it that way. I don't know that Bryce wants to hit 2. I think he still wants to hit 3. You might be listening to this and saying, well, who really cares at the end of the day where he hits, or who cares where he wants to hit? But I think that does carry some weight.
The first part of it, better. People do care, and they don't care where he wants to hit, right? It's he should hit here, and I don't care what he wants. Why does Bryce Harper get a say? Well, he's Bryce Harper, and I guess that has some weight. He has suggested, Bob, has he not? I'll do what's best for the team.
Yes, he has. And look, I'm not saying that he won't do it. I just think if you asked him, where do you want to hit? He's going to tell you 3 every day of the week. But I think that they're trying to figure this out. I think you're going to see some looks the way they rolled it out there today. And I think that they're probably going to show you again, Turner with, Schwarber 2, Harper 3, Bohm 4. But I think that those 4 guys are going to be the 4 guys at the top of the order, and they'll tinker with it. We talked about it last week. I think that the Phillies have a little bit of concern about their offense. I think that they know that there's holes. I think that they know that they can be exposed on any given day with certain matchups. And so they're just going to look for the best configuration here. But, man, it is so, so important. And this is what I was going to come to you with today. Trea Turner's got to do it. And if Trea Turner is lost for significant stretches of time, this offense gets pretty thin pretty quickly.
Yeah, I put today's lineup up there. Not that this means anything. It was Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber. Now, that 4 right there, that is one that I have written about a lot. That's the 4 and the way that I would do it. Castellanos generally would be in the next spot. And then I guess you could go Stott or Kepler. Kepler went yard today, his first spring home run, and a member of the Phillies. Then JT, then Kepler or Stott, and then you've got whoever's playing center field for that particular day. Schwarber hitting in the 4 hole, I guess, is kind of the key to this whole thing. The problem is, now we've talked about this, I think, before, you still have Bohm as the protection for Harper if he's hitting 2 and Bohm is hitting 3. So we have seen the configuration of the 2 lefties together, but generally in the spring they've done Schwarber 2 and Harper 3.
Yeah, well, get ready to hear this a lot from me, especially early on here when we're looking for things to talk about. I still think they're a bat short. I just think that they're a right-handed bat short. I've thought that last year. I thought that all off season. I'm looking at that lineup that you just popped up on the screen here on this YouTube stream, and I think the same thing now. The only protection that they really have if they want to divide up or switch up those guys in the first 4, say Trea Turner does struggle, and they have to make a move to try to take a little bit of pressure off of him. Bryson Stott is really the only guy that you see there that you'd say like, all right, maybe we can hit him, 1, maybe 2 to give a different look up top. But other than that, they really don't have a lot of options. And so that's why it's so important for this to kind of shake out here.
Yeah, well, it almost makes Castellanos the most important guy too, because he's the right-handed guy that's given them not enough. He's given them, like last year, 23 homers. He was okay. Second half of the year, much better. But if they can, and I don't think that's in there. I just don't think there's that year in him where he just emerges and hits 25 to 30 homers, drives in 100 runs, hits 280. I just don't think that's there. But could that be Bohm?
Yeah,
we talk about it every year. He hit 2 bombs the other day. Does he look like a guy who has that next step in him? Or is he who he is?
I think he is who he is. And look, if you assess what he's been, he's a fine major league hitter. He's certainly a guy that you want in your lineup in terms of a production standpoint. He does offer the Phillies a little bit of a different look. It's not so boom or bust all the time. And I certainly think that he's a legitimate major league hitter, somebody that you can slot somewhere in the middle of your order. I think in an ideal world, if your lineup had a little bit more length, you'd like to see Bohm hitting, 6th. I think in a really good lineup as opposed to 3.
Agree. Yep.
But for what they have, is he optimal protection for Bryce Harper? No. Do I think that there's much more to his game, much more progression offensively? I don't. But he's still a useful player. I don't mean to say that and to knock him necessarily.
So every year where we're like, can he hit 20 to 25? He gives you 15. He has 97 RBI. Can he be a 110 guy? That's not in him.
I mean, who am I to say that it's not in him? But I don't see it. And I think that the Phillies got to a place last year where no matter what the storyline may be about maturity, guys can evolve, guys can get better, guys can figure things out as they get to their late 20s. But I mean, he's not a 23-year-old anymore. The body is sort of the body. Does he learn something here maybe that takes his game up a level? Perhaps, but when it mattered most last year and the Phillies were reeling against the Mets, they opted not to put him in the starting lineup. And, no matter how they want to sell it or twist it or whatever you want to say, I think that speaks volumes about where they're at on him. But now they have no choice but to kind of ride with it here, because I think when you go out and look at the trade market and what was out there, just you weren't going to get enough in return, and they're in a win now mode. So here we are.
Here we are. Yes, one bat short yet again. Bob Wankel crossing broad. Phil's getting waxed today. The one run came from Max Kepler. Obviously don't know what to expect from him. Left-handed hitter. That's another spot where they're short because you're playing a left-handed bat in left field every single day. And that really is, a head-scratching decision, I would guess, is how do you went out and got a left-handed bat to play every day to play left field? That to me, you look back on this offseason and say they couldn't figure out a way to find a guy that could hit right-handed and pop maybe 15, 18 home runs there and not have to play. Like Grichuk is a guy that I'm like, why did they go after a guy like that can pop 15 to 18 homers?
Yeah, and I'll tell you that there's a possibility that he can handle lefties, and he thinks he can do both. And his numbers throughout his career just don't really support that. I mean, his OPS is roughly around 650. I think it's 655 lifetime OPS against lefties. So, they are right back to kind of where they've been here with this noticeable shortcoming, and they're very much skewed one way in this lineup. When they put their best guys out there, they can be exposed by lefties, and unfortunately, they've just not been able to rectify that. And there's been a variety of reasons we've gotten to this point. Johan Rojas and I think his inability to really hit at the, a passable major league level is a big part of this.
All right, Bob, I want to get your opinion so far on this pitching staff. I tweeted this out this morning. I think the 2025 staff will be better than the 2011 staff.
Wow, that's fun.
Let's hear your comps there. How do you match them up? I mean, the 2011 Halladay is probably the best of the 10. But I think almost every other spot, Lee was very good. It wasn't Hamill's best year. Bland.
How are you? Well, Hamill's really struggled in 2009, was okay in 10, was pretty good in 11. You know, he bounced back 10, 11. I guess when you say that, I would take 11 Halladay over 25 Wheeler by a hair. I just don't know where you match. I don't know where you match 2011 Lee. Is that Christopher Sanchez? Because it's not Aaron Nola.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know who matches him, but I just think the depth of the 5 will be better than the 5 that they had, even though, like, you know, they were really good. But because you have those 5, you might have a shot to win like 100 games.
Look, I really like this rotation a lot. I mean, you listen to me talk about the lineup and you're like, oh boy. But when it comes to this rotation, I mean, they are good and they are deep. And I look at it and you see what you've gotten from Christopher Sanchez here. You talk about, like, is there more in Alec Boehm's progression? You wonder how much more there is in Christopher Sanchez's progression. And then he comes out and he's touching 99. And I know he's only thrown 2 innings here at a time early in the spring, but if he adds to this fastball, he has that sinker and he can hit 98, 99 for some period of length in his starts. I mean, all of a sudden you're talking about a legitimate top of the rotation arm, not just hey, this is a good story. They locked him up long-term and he's really quality number 4, maybe a 3. I mean, you're talking about a guy that could maybe give you top of the rotation production. And then you slot in Aaron Nola and you kind of know what you're going to get there. It's not always going to be pretty. There's going to be a lot of games where you kind of want to rip your hair out, but then you look up at the end of the year and he's throwing 190 innings and he's got a 3.5 ERA and his whip is under 1.2. And you go, okay, give me that all day. And then you look at the upside that Luzardo possesses. I'm very bullish on him. And you know, Ranger Suarez has it in him to string together months consecutively where he looks like a top of the rotation guy.
He pitched well today, by the way, Suarez in relief. Wheeler did not throw well today.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of my point about spring training. Like, we'll probably get the quotes after the game about, you know, how I was just trying to work on something. I mean, Wheeler, 2 innings today, 8 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 strikeouts, no walks. I mean, are you concerned about Zach Wheeler after today? I'm not. So,
no.
So
well, I will say this. One of these years, he got here because in New York, he couldn't stay healthy. You know, when they signed Zach Wheeler, I mean, you can go back and look at that signing and say, did anybody think you were getting a perennial Cy Young, best pitcher in the league caliber guy? No way.
No, I mean, look, that was probably Bryce Harper included. They've gotten significant value out of Bryce Harper, but along with that signing, the Zach Wheeler signing might go down as one of the best free agent signings in this franchise's history. And if the Eagles didn't just do a deal with Zach Bond at $4 million a year for one season where he turned into an all-pro and signed Saquon Barkley, in which he became the best offensive player in the league and propelled them to a Super Bowl, I'd say it might be one of the best signings of the city over the last 20 years. So, yeah, I mean, they've gotten everything more that they could have possibly wanted from him. Yeah. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, he's an aging guy. He's thrown a ton of innings, and you got to kind of cross your fingers and hope it holds up.
Well, go back to the thing we were bringing up before. So you had Wheeler, however you want to configure him. Wheeler, I mean, you're right. You could put Sanchez in the 2 spot. You could make an argument that Luzardo might bounce over Nola and that Nola's the 4th guy at some part of the season. And then the wild card being Painter of what he really is and what that means for this, rotation. When you go back to that 2011 team, you had Cy Young level, really good, and then the next 3 guys were, they were kind of in the 500 range. Oswalt was at the end of the line by then. Blanton was just a back end of the rotation guy, solid. So that's where I look at the depth of this team and say, man, every night of the week, unless the 5 guy gets matched up against like Skeens or something, you're going to have probably the better guy on the mound most of the nights.
Yeah, and that's why when you look at this team's over-under, you look at this team's odds to compete in the division and win a World Series, it's why they're so high up there. I mean, it's no joke having a win total set at 91 and a half. A lot of things have to go right to have a win total set at that number and to surpass it. And I just think that when you look at the quality and the depth in the rotation, and I think they're in a spot where they could even withstand an injury or 2 for a period of time. they can run 6 deep, 7 deep when Painter comes in the middle of the season if everything progresses the way it's supposed to there. I mean, Mike, even Taijuan Walker, he was nipping 92, 93 the other day in his spring training debut, up 4 miles an hour over a year ago. I really actually do think that that's more of like I say this kiddingly, by the way, but I think
in jest, yes.
Yes, in jest. But
when I'm putting together my list of the best free agent signings in Philadelphia, Walker, 4 years.
4 years, $72 million. You didn't like that
He's
one?
not on that list.
Nah,
You're stuck with him next year, too, by the way. Unless, I guess the big thing is if he can show – the problem is, when does he get an opportunity to show another team that he could do anything? That's the issue.
Yeah, there is a world where if he were to pitch very well over the next 3 weeks, maybe he's the long man out of the bullpen. We know that that's not exactly the ideal fit for him. Is there a team, though, that's desperate and will just take on a veteran guy who's, by all accounts, a really good dude, experienced, and the Phillies eat the bulk of the salary and the Phillies are willing to part with him? Is that still in play? Probably. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like we're going to see Taijuan Walker make another start for the Phillies, but I've been wrong about that in the past, so we'll see.
Well, if somebody gets hurt, I mean, that's where, he probably still hangs around for that. People are going to wonder, and he might make the team for that reason, and just, because they're paying him so much, unless there's a guy that nobody knows or hasn't been watching or can't see because they don't have the games on, but, is there someone who's kind of emerging as, hey, this guy might make the team as a bullpen arm?
Yeah, they have a number of options for the last spot in the bullpen, but right now I think there's 4 or 5 guys that probably, are all sort of out there, and they're going to have to separate themselves over time here. I do wonder if the contract comes into play, though. I really do. As much as I think that the primary objective this spring is to showcase Taijuan Walker and hope that somebody will take him off their hands. Phillies know they're going to have to eat most of the salary. They would love that to be the outcome. I believe that. But is there a world where they stash him, because of the money, because he has starting experience? Maybe.
Bob Wankel crossing Broad. Phil's down in Clearwater for another couple of weeks. I'm heading down on the 18th and looking forward to a couple of games. I'll be over at TD Bank Ballpark in Dunedin for the Phillies and Blue Jays on that Friday. Sunday, I'll be at Baycare Park. Frank Close will be there tomorrow for 97.3 ESPN.com in Clearwater. We'll hear from him with more Phillies. A lot of Phils. Yesterday, I kind of got the juice a little. I got a little something yesterday. I don't know what it was, but I got something.
This is the time. You kind of get it. You get a little revved up right now. NFL free agency takes over next week, and then you blink, and then you're right there. You're right on the doorstep of the season. So
I you know what it was? The Bohm 2-homer day coupled with Sanchez giving me the velocity. I was like, hey, listen, if those guys can give me something more, give me something more.
I couldn't believe that Quentin Grimes' 44 points on Saturday night against the Warriors didn't get you all sixered up.
I've been proposing this for a year, but the teams that finish right out of the playoffs should have the most ping pong balls.
Okay. I like that. That's fun.
You should not be rewarded, and the fans should not have to sit here and actively root for your team to lose. If I'm banged up and I got young players, I still want you to try. I don't want to watch a game being disappointed when I win. That should not be the way your league is operated.
That's like sports heaven, though, right? You're like, all right, best case scenario, we get in. Worst case scenario, we get
what it would do,
or maybe vice versa. Maybe it's worst case scenario, we get in.
Right. Well, what it would do is the teams that are constantly stuck in the middle, it gives them that player that allows them to get out of the middle
and get over the hump. Yeah,
and get over the hump. And then people say, well, what about the teams at the bottom? Figure out a way to get out of there. Yeah. You're just like the teams in the middle. They're stuck there. Now you're stuck there. I would rather the teams in the middle, though, influx of talent towards the top, and then you start to push people down. So if you finish in 9 in the West, 9 in the East, you get the same amount of ping pong balls, 10, 11, 12. Bang. There you go.
It's an interesting theory. I like that. I've never heard that before. I'll have to marinate on that for a little bit.
Get back to me.
All right.
Bob Wankel, everybody. Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. Talk soon.
There's Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, covers the Phillies. Always kind enough to join us right here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. subscribe, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You know the drill. Coming up, Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible. The combine is over. The draft is on the way. The Eagles have signed Saquon Barkley to an extension. What happens if Milton Williams leaves? What about Zach Bond? We're going to take a look at the draft class, strongest spots, and more. Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible, All Access, coming up next on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN.
Things are just better when you switch to Cricket. The sun shines a little brighter. Happy music starts randomly playing. Best of all, you can get iPhone 13 for just $29.99 with the ultra bright Super Retina display and up to 19 hours of video playback, all on Cricket's super fast 5G network. See? Isn't that better? Smile, you're on Cricket.
Requires new account imported on $60 plan. First service charge, tax to its sale. $25 activation fee. Terms and restrictions apply. Cricket 5G is not available everywhere. See store for details.
You don't need a President's or Valentine's sale. Get to Matt Black Kia and save every day with over 1,100 new Kias in stock or en route. All with zero down, zero payments until May. Even low 1.9% financing for 60 months on 25 Kia Sorento and Sportage SUV. So bring any trade, even if you're buried in a loan or lease. Matt Black Kia wants to get you released and into your new Matt Black Kia, like the all-new 25K4. Just $129 per month lease with zero security deposit and only $36.95 due. Matt Black Kia, your PA and New Jersey Kia superstores in Abington, Egg Harbor Township, and Toms River, or right to your front door.
It's gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
With approved credit, $13.89 per thousand finance. Not all will qualify. Credit may affect down payment. Offers can't be combined. Go to mattblackkia.nj.com for complete details or 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes through KMF. Rebates and incentives to be owned. Expires 3/4/25. Matt Black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and on Route 37 in Toms River. Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
All right, 3:31 on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, which you can get thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. It's free in the Apple Store, Google Play. Live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Smash that like button and subscribe. And you can see my guy Rick Saratella right now, NFL Draft Bible All Access. A look at the NFL Draft. The Combine is in the books. Free agency starts on Monday. And the Eagles made the big boy signing today as they bring back Saquon Barkley for 2 more years, $41 million. I guess, Rick, that means they're not in the market, at least for a lead running back. They might need a guy to replace somebody like Kenny Gainwell, but Barkley gets the big deal. And, that's the kind of money we're all yearning for, right? Is that what you're making?
Yeah, right. Barkley makes the big bucks. Deservedly so. And I'll tell you what, don't sleep on that Will Shipley. He looks pretty good. So I think he's a capable backup. But yes, in a very deep and talented running back class, I don't anticipate the Eagles utilizing a draft pick on a running back, but they might bring in some undrafted free agents. But this is what Howie Roseman does best. He's a captologist. He manages this cap inside and out, backward, forward, and he really runs circles around the other general managers because that's really his background and forte and how he got his start in the NFL front office.
All right, you watched the Combine, studied it all, combed through everything. Couple takeaways from who stands out that now, if you're listening out there and your favorite team needs something, who are some guys they should be listening for?
Well, I think Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky really blew the lid off of the Lucas Oil Stadium. He ran a 4.28 40-yard dash. I think he hit almost 24 miles per hour on the run and a 41-inch vertical, something to that effect. And you talk about what he did down at the Senior Bowl during that one-on-one portion throughout the week. I mean, he just stood out. He's got an SEC proven resume. I think he had 4 interceptions this year. So he's got ball instincts. He can bait the quarterback, plays man coverage, but also has the instincts to adapt to zone if you need him to, like the Eagles play that quarter coverage. Maxwell Hairston is a guy now making everybody run back to the videotape because after Travis Hunter, Jahdae Barron out of Texas is another guy with a 4.40, 40-inch vertical, Thorpe Award winner over Travis Hunter. You talk about playing big-time football with the Texas Longhorns. And again, very sticky man coverage that Jahdae Barron. He'll get knocked a little bit because he's 5'11". Hairston is 6'1", but he's 180. Barron's got the more compact frame. And that's why, they're in that tier 2 category. But, everybody said Travis Hunter coming into it. What about Will Johnson? He didn't work out of Michigan. So the cornerback class is very deep. And everybody's talking about the defensive tackles, defensive ends, the pass rushers. Abdul Carter did not work out, but I think he's still in the equation there for the first overall pick to Tennessee. James Pierce Jr. is fascinating, especially to Eagles fans, Mike. Here's a guy out of Tennessee. If you were to manufacture the ideal pass rusher frame, the machinery would spit out James Pierce Jr. I mean, he just looks the part. He's got the bend. 132 quarterback pressures for his career, only 19 and a half sacks. So I want to see him be able to finish a little bit more. But when you talk about a guy that's 6'3", 250 pounds, runs faster than most of the running backs out there, has great bend and dip around the edge, the concern here is his character concerns. And you're hearing reports Tennessee couldn't wait to get this guy off the campus. And to me, that screams Eagles all day. Like, he's a top 10 talent. If he's hanging out there at 32, look out for James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee.
All right, you just mentioned defensive tackle. Give me some guys to kind of keep an eye on, because if the Eagles do pick at 32, who are some big winners from the combine? Because 32 would be a spot, correct, agree or disagree, that Howie Roseman would not feel he would be comfortable taking a D tackle if they stayed at 32. That's a spot where Roseman would say, tackle, I have no problem taking. He might not like to take a safety there, a linebacker there, but he would take a D tackle there.
Yeah, and I think he mentioned that at his podium interview, right? He said, I've got an addiction to interior, offense and defensive linemen. I feel like we never have enough. So, you're looking at a guy like Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, who came in at like 340 pounds, and he's another great athlete. Everybody talks about Mason Graham out of Michigan, who did not work out and might have seen his draft stock falling. But I think Grant is going to be there on the board potentially at number 32. A couple under the radar guys like Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. Everybody likes to draft those national championship players. You saw Howie have that run with the Georgia players when they were winning championships. I mean, Tyleik Williams, what he does in the two gap, the run stuffing ability, you're talking about losing a guy such as a Milton Williams. Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State at about 6'3", 325. Could step right in, no problems asked. And Darius Alexander out of Toledo, you want a dark horse? I mean, a seventh-year senior, I believe, is going to be 25 years old. We're still dealing with this post-COVID mortem, and you wonder, where's all the production the first 5 or 6 years? This guy's a one-year wonder, busted onto the scene this past year, had a phenomenal senior ball. I said, man, let me do my due diligence on Darius Alexander. He's got size, he's got athleticism, he tested through the roof. Darius Alexander out of Toledo. You saw it last year, Toledo making waves. They might do it again this year.
I was going to say, you got to see Quinyon Mitchell last year, so I'm sure Alexander maybe jumped off the page for Howie Roseman and the Eagles scouts down there, because D-tackle, a lot of depth in this draft, but 32 would be a spot they would take him. They would also, if 32, they stay on the board, edge rusher would be another spot that they might look at.
And the edge rushers are loaded. I mean, I'm talking about, I can't remember a defensive line class like Ndamukong Suh and Gerald McCoy, I think, came out. That was a big-time defensive line class. This year's class is right up there with it. Mike Green out of Marshall is another guy, transfer out of Virginia. He was very open about his sexual harassment allegations at Virginia and also in high school, never been charged with anything. And so NFL teams will have to do their due diligence. But when I tell you he just ran over Josh Connerly at the Senior Bowl during one-on-one reps, it was the play of the week. It caught my attention. It caught a lot of NFL scouts' attention. And I think he led the league in sacks this past season by no mistake. Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. I mean, I can't get that sack, scoop, and score out of my head against Quinn Ewers and against that Texas Longhorns team in the college football championship. This guy just made clutch plays all season long. He might be limited athleticism, Mike, but he's going to be like a potential double-digit sack guy year in and year out. You can just plug and play him. I think that's a great target for 32. And how about Donovan Eskuraku from Boston College? I butchered his name. It's okay. You know who I'm talking about, the edge rusher from BC. This guy's got burst, explosion, pass rush repertoire. He's doing guys silly with the spin move, the dip, the rip. I like the kid out of Boston College as a dark horse first-round candidate.
We're talking with Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible. The NFL draft season right around the corner. The combine is in the books. Another spot I want to get your take on is the depth at tight end, because a couple of years ago they draft, of course, they have Ertz, they draft Goddard. Now Goddard is at that age where they probably look to draft someone there, and they did it when they had pick 32. They traded. Baltimore moved up. They took Lamar. The Eagles took Goddard in that spot there. So it seems that tight end is another area where Howie Roseman will probably need to have done his homework.
Yeah, that's an interesting assessment. I thought Dallas Goedert broke down a little bit too last year. I don't know how reliable in terms of durability. So you talk about, hey, your pick of the litter. I think a guy like Colston Loveland out of Michigan, who's 6'5", 245 pounds, a pass catching weapon for the Wolverines there, a consensus number 1 tight end for most of the season. I think he could slide now. That's because Mason Taylor, the nephew of Jason Taylor out of LSU, didn't do any testing at the combine, Mike, but this guy was as smooth as an 8-ball running that gauntlet drill, high speed, never deviated off that line. Mason Taylor, I think, might be the second tight end off the board. He's a dark horse for the first round. Elijah Arroyo from Miami. You talk about a tight end who could scoot. This guy hits like 24 miles per hour, close to it. That's the kind of speed that NFL teams are looking for at the tight end position. So one of those guys, whether it's Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo out of Miami, Colston Loveland out of Michigan, one of those guys is going to be hanging out at 32. And I just want to add the most disappointing performance, or one of, Harold Fannin out of Bowling Green. He was so disappointing, Mike. He ran a 4.72 40-yard dash. I really had high hopes and expectations for him. Now I think he's now a day 3 prospect.
All right. We want to also take a look at the top half of that draft, just to get a couple thoughts as we now get that combine over. Did your thoughts and projections change at the top? You got Tennessee, people calling them at 1. You got Cleveland at 2. You got the Giants at 3. So those 3 teams, has anything changed post-combine in your mind?
Well, a lot of smoke around the Giants trying to move up to number 1 overall, and that tells me, like, when the Titans GM came out and said, hey, we're not going to deviate and shy away from taking a generational talent, he didn't mention at what pick. And so they might think there's 3 generational talents, or there might be 2 generational talents. Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter come to mind. And if a quarterback goes in one of those top 2 picks and they slide down to number 3, they're still getting their quote unquote generational talent. So I would say the separation between Cam Ward has been noticeable and the rest of the QB class. And I started to pick that up at the Senior Bowl. You started to really get that kind of feel at the combine as well. We shall see. A lot of things can happen. We're 51 days away, but I don't think you're going to see, Mason Graham is a guy that I thought maybe got dinged a little bit by not working out. And I did a mock draft top 10. It was kind of hard trying to find a slot for Mason Graham. So I think, it would be good if he had a big pro day, because his frame is not ideal. Just some random thoughts there off the top. Omarion Hampton, I'll tell you this. Here's a hot take. Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina could possibly be the first running back off the board ahead of Ashton Genty, and that might surprise some listeners, but I don't think it'll surprise anybody around NFL front offices.
Yeah, it feels a lot like a couple years ago when you had Bijan Robinson and the kid that went to Detroit,
Jahmyr
Gibbs, and there was a lot of people that said Gibbs might be the guy. Now, Robinson's been awesome too, but you probably could have waited and got Gibbs a little later, and Atlanta, took Robinson very high in that draft. Now, if you're a $20 million back like Barkley, the running back's coming back in vogue, baby.
Yeah, that's right. I think you're going to see at least 2 running backs in the first round. Don't forget about Cam Scadaboo. I think he's a wild card in this draft. He didn't work out or do testing drills at the combine, but if he has a big pro day, Cam Scadaboo could be in the mix. And don't forget, Ohio State has 2 highly talented runners, and I like this kid, DJ Giddens, out of Kansas State. I mean, running back, it might not be a star-laden, blue-chip kind of draft, Mike, but there's so much depth at so many positions. I really like this draft. It's growing.
Where do you have Tyler Warren? Is he the first tight end for you?
I mean, he's arguably a top 5 talent in my estimation. He's definitely a top 10 overall pick in my book, and I love Tyler Warren. I think he's a game changer at the tight end position. You saw what Brock Bowers did this past season for the Raiders, different style of player, but you saw the significant impact he can have. I think Tyler Warren, man, is an animal.
All right, NFL Draft, 51 days away. We'll be checking in on the draft, the mock drafts, how everything's happening. Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible. You can check him out there and right here at NFL Draft Bible. Follow them there for more. He's got the Baldy breakdowns, all access. You can get a ton of draft coverage. It starts now. Rick, thanks, buddy.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, there's Rick Saratella. He'll be joining us throughout the draft process here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. And there you go, a little bit of take on the couple positions that the Eagles are going to be interested in at 32. That would be tackle, D-tackle, I should say, edge rusher, and possibly tight end in that second round. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. This hour is brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, installation. Call 609-390-3907. Online, broadlees.net. Eagles reward Saquon Barkley with a $41.2 million extension. I have your text messages that have been coming in. That's next. Stick around. 609-403-0973. If you want to get involved on the text board, shoot me a text. I'll read and react to it. Next on the Sports Bash.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
On 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, it's Mike Gill. As football winds down, college basketball is gearing up. Fans are ready to see which teams will prove they are ready to shine in March and who will be seen in San Antonio. You can get in on all the action from tip-off to the final whistle at ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Right now, new ESPN Bet Sportsbook customers can bet $10 to get $100 in bonus bets and unlock 30 days of ESPN Plus. Download the app and sign up with promo code RADIO100 to get started today. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/radio right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
All right, 350 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, a historic deal today. Saquon Barkley signs with Philadelphia, an extension, $41 million, 2 more years, $36 million guaranteed. This is why the Eagles are the best-run organization in football and maybe all of sports. They know when to approach their guy. Now, we got a lot of text messages I want to read and react to. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Mike, if we know how, he had probably freed up cap space, but stretching out the money, it's his MO. Yeah, I'll get into that in just a second. Cole from LBI says the Eagles have $100 million dead cap hit in like 2028 or 29 when Hurts is up for contract. By doing this with Saquon, it aligns the Eagles for a 3-year swing for the fences window before they reset the cap around 2029. Something to be said for that. I've been talking about this 3-year window with the core guys for the last couple of years. This gives actually puts Barkley outside that window a little bit because of Brown and some of the other guys. But nonetheless, I'm excited about the signing a running back, I'm not excited about signing a running back into his 30s for such a high amount of money, but Howie works magic. Let's see what else he has up his sleeve. That's on the text board. I agree with the running back in the 30s thing. That's something that you definitely got to be a little leery about. I mean, you're paying for past performance here. There's no question about it. You're paying for what he did this season, and you are rewarding him for that. This one is from Shaner in Weymouth. He says, Mike, when you think about this, it's an organization, the Super Bowl champs, showing value to the running back position. We have 3 that work for us, could upgrade from Gainwell or Shipley, but it's going to drive up value across the league. Others will have to spend more to get a good running back, and the Birds set that up. Now it perhaps take up more cap room for others when we paid up front and low-end deals with the other 2. It's a good move. I think it sets up the precedent across the Players Association that the Eagles treat you proper, therefore attracting free agents and high-end draft picks. Maybe, perhaps, or am I overthinking this? Whew, a lot there, Shaner. Yeah, I think it shows good faith that the Eagles are the best organization in football. Free agents want to come here. Myles Garrett might say, you know what, I want to play in Philly. Like, that's where I want you to trade me. Regardless of the offer, get me there somehow, some way. But, yes, they have set a precedent now that the running back room matters. That running back room matters, and the Eagles have just showed that by paying one $20 million. Now, how much are they going to lean on him next year? He's not going to have the same year that he just had, right? He's not going to have the same year. Another text message. Mike, I think at face value it's not smart, but this to me sounds like Howie made a promise to Barkley in the initial deal. Look, the one thing is this. The cap hit for Saquon Barkley was on the books for, I don't know, like $14 million, 13 and a half, somewhere in there. Now they cut that in half. They cut Barkley's cap hit in half with this deal. That's why they do it. They approach him, and now they cut the cap hit in half. And that's what makes the deal a brilliant deal if you're looking at it from a cap standpoint. Now, if you're saying guaranteed 36, 31 years old, 2,000 yards, all that stuff, well, that's a different story. We'll get into that story coming up next when we talk to Adam Kaplan for Football at 4 today. Yes, football at 4 on the other side. This hour of the Sports Bash has been sponsored by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, installation. Call 609-390-3907. Online, broadlees.net. Yes, let's get Adam's take on why now? Why this? Why this deal for Saquon Barkley? He just had the best season he ever had. Also, we'll further explain Darius Slay. We'll go inside the Debo trade to Washington. Does that make them a threat in the NFC East? And James Bradberry released today as well.
The Rock 104.1 mobile app. Listen as Tim Saunders and Todd Fedor bring you all the exciting play-by-play action.
Now Beach Pump on the back end. He scores! Bad Bay Beach Pump.
It's Flyers Flame. Tonight, coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on South Jersey's classic rock station.
What a save by Harrison again.
Rock 104.1 and the Rock 104.1 mobile app.
There she is, founder and CEO. High five.
Dave can't stop celebrating with every business owner in town.
All right, Baker Man, high five.
He's sharing the excitement of big savings with the Comcast Business 5-year price lock guarantee.
Oh, up top, Bike Shop.
Yeah. It's 5 years of gig speed internet.
Quick, high five.
5 years of advanced security.
5 years.
And 5 years of a great rate that won't change.
Yeah, law partners. Chamberlain, Thorpe, Dubois.
All from the company with 99.9% network reliability. Switch today and get the 5-year price lock guarantee.
5 years.
It's back, but only for a limited time.
Woo!
Powering 5 years of savings, powering possibilities. Comcast Business.
Can't forget you, voiceover guy.
Ah, thanks, Dave.
High five.
Ends 3/9/25. Guaranteed rate applies to monthly service charge for new customers on qualifying internet bundle, excluding taxes and fees. Other restrictions apply.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card, so let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver Card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Kaplan, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
I give my heart and soul to this franchise, as so many of us do.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Well, not ordinary today. We're going to talk to Adam Kaplan in just a minute or so. The Eagles have extended the contract of Saquon Barkley, $41 million extension. What does it mean? The instant reaction for me is, wow. The Eagles just absolutely blow him away by saying, hey, we're going to come to you. We're going to re-sign you. It's a 2-year, $41 million extension. So what does this mean? He is here through the 2028 season. He will be the first running back to make more than $20 million. He gets a $36 million guarantee at signing. So this is a move, and we're going to talk to Adam about it. Why now? Why did they make this move in this moment? You know, free agency hasn't begun. They really haven't had to do anything, but does this set them up for some opportunities in the free agent market, in the trade market, all that stuff? A couple other things before we talk to Adam Kaplan here. This is a historic season. It's a historic deal because he's the highest paid running back in NFL history, and he gets that $36 million at signing, which means, you know, you were imagining that this is going to be, that this deal is signed for cap purposes. When you get that much money up front like that, remember, he got a 3-year, $38 million deal last year. You give him another $40 million, another $36 guaranteed, plus he has an escalator with $15 million potential as well. The big thing is, he is 28 years old. He had 345 touches last year. Is this move a pertinent move? Is it a smart move? I mean, we all love Barkley. I don't think there's anybody out there that's like, man, I don't like that dude. He stinks. No. But Howie Roseman is not a dumb man. He has to have a reason why he decides to pull the trigger on this deal. And there's a couple things. One, the optics of it to free agents around the league. Hey, when it comes to contracts, we're your friend. We are going to come to you when you perform. You know, it is the hope for all of us out there that when you perform, your employer notices it. And here's Saquon Barkley saying, you signed me, and somehow I outperformed that deal. That's hard to do when you got paid the amount of money he got paid. But he did. And the Eagles came to him and said, you outperformed that deal. We're going to give you more money. But why? As John McMullen said earlier today, look, they don't hand out a deal like that without thinking that they got, and I don't want to say an advantage. They're not getting, quote unquote, getting one over on him. His agent's not going to allow that to happen. But he got money, big money, and in the same breath, the Eagles probably got some sort of flexibility to make it worth them going to the player, right? And offering the amount of money that they did. $41 million with $36 million signing bonus. when you look at what the Philadelphia Eagles were able to pull off today, it's a smart move financially, cap-wise, I'm sure. And Adam can explain a little bit more about that, and he's going to join us in just a minute. He's actually, getting some more details on all this stuff. He just texted me. He'll be on here just in a couple moments. But we had McMullen on earlier, and he talked about the things that stand out about this deal. The Eagles are a year ahead of doing this generally. That's why they're better than Dallas. That's why they're better than these teams that they don't know when to approach the guys. They wait till they get to free agency. Then they get hit over the head, and then their cap situation's a disaster. In the case of Barkley, you get a guy that they said, let's do right by this guy. Let's do right by him. Now, the big thing is Howie gets a lot of praise when it comes to this stuff because of the cap manipulation, yada, 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 all that stuff. But you have to have Jeffrey Lurie on board to write the check. You got to get Jeffrey Lurie on board to write that check for $36 million guaranteed. All right, let's break it down. Adam Kaplan is here from the Inside the Birds podcast, Football at 4. And, Adam, I imagine there's an emergency pod coming at some point here. But this is big news. I mean, this is the highest-paid running back in the history of the game. He's the first $20 million a year running back. Why today? Why now?
Yeah, and I'm glad that the Eagles made news for us. It's always great on Inside the Birds. No, we don't need not for a contract. I mean, it's one thing if he left or they had a big trade, but no. But what it does is gives us juice for our show tomorrow. We got a lot we're going to get into with this. Break it down and go inside the situation. But with Barkley, Mike, the fascinating thing is number one, they did not have to do anything. I mean, they made him the second highest paid running back in the NFL behind Christian McCaffrey, and then McCaffrey got an adjustment on his contract. And Barkley had the best year in NFL history at running back obviously through a Super Bowl. And they looked at it, and he was making about $12.6 million a season. And there was an issue with 2026, Mike. Very little guaranteed money in year 3, only $1.3 million, and they did it. They did right by him. Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, but Jeffrey because he signed the contracts and Howie, with his relationship with Ed Berry from CAA, I believe he did this deal. They did the previous deal, so it's a win-win all around. And Mike, now we know this: no matter what happens, Barkley will be here. And even if let's say he misses almost all the season, or he has a bad season, because guys who have 2,000 yards typically the next year don't do very well. Let's say he only runs for 1,100 and has a bad year. It won't matter in terms of him being on the roster in 2026. He will absolutely be here because of the money you just mentioned from the ESPN report. They guaranteed $36 million. Mm-hmm. That'll keep him on the roster through 2026 no matter what. Now, the contract, the previous contract ended after 26. There were 4 void years for cap purposes. So we don't know yet because I haven't got the structure yet about what it looks like. But this is obviously a massive increase. You're talking about nearly $7.5 million a year of an increase. Now, I want to caution people. A lot of these deals are backloaded, where it might be over $20 million, but on average, but the real money might be $17 million. We just don't know it because I haven't seen it. But the bottom line is the Eagles guaranteed more money. That's without question. That is a great job by Jeffrey Lurie to do this and Howie to get the negotiating going and CAA to take care of it and to take care of their best player. To do this, Mike, that's the way you do it. Now, the only can of worms it could open, because I know the way this works, agents who have players who have time left on their deal, they may say something to Howie, hey, what about my guy? That could happen, but the Eagles are taking care of Saquon, and nobody has a problem with that.
Yeah, now I guess the thought is, like, Howie Roseman and the Eagles, they're not dummies. Do they approach him because it benefits them in some way?
Mike, I'm looking, and remember, it's always about cash, not cap. I'm looking at his cap numbers here, Mike. They're actually they're actually very reasonable. On the prior deal, this year was $7.3 million. 26 was $9.31 million. Now, because of the void years, there was $20 million. Even if he did not play, even if he retired after 26, there was $20.2 million in cap charges because of the voidable years, because there are 4 voidable years. So No, I don't. I mean, I will. Again, I don't. The new deal is not available yet for the breakdown. I will get that. I always get the contract breakdowns. I'll get it, and we'll talk about it inside the Birds. But
so to be clear, Adam, real quick, he is signed through 2026. His base salary coming up next year will be 1.1. The following year is 1.3. The extension is for 2027 and 2028. He got a $36 million signing bonus there, so he gets that money up front. And his base salary is still paltry compared to people. Correct?
Right. Hang on. Is it out there that the signing bonus is $36 million?
He got a guaranteed. I don't know if it's a. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a complete. Yeah, just so you know, that has nothing to do with it.
Hold on, let me. I thought it was a signing bonus. Let me.
No, I think it's fully guaranteed. They fully guaranteed through the ESPN report $36 million. That does not mean it's a signing bonus.
It says 36 guaranteed at signing.
Yeah, that's not signing bonus. That just means that in all the signing bonus, the base salaries, and any other bonuses are fully guaranteed at signing. That's what that means.
And he has the ability to earn 15 more in incentives and escalators.
And by the way, he hit, I think, every incentive, which is insane, Mike. They won a Super Bowl, and he set the record rushing. It's crazy.
Ironically here, Adam, I'm getting a lot of text messages today, as you can imagine. There's a lot of people scratching their heads, and they're saying, why? He gave you the best year he ever had. Why would you sign him after that year? 345 carries, 2,000 yards.
Yep.
Do you wonder if this was a pertinent decision?
Oh, wait, say it again. I didn't hear the end of that. What did you say?
Are you wondering if this is a smart decision to say, you just gave us 2,000 yards, but 345 carries at 28 years old? With some injury histories, do you worry about that if you're Philadelphia?
Very fair. Smart texters, Mike, because history shows that you can look at Chris Johnson. You can look at it that there haven't been a lot of them, obviously, but you can look at the guys who've had monster years like this. They're typically never the same. Other than Derrick Henry, he's still, and obviously he was great this past season. He still has been very good after that. But, yeah, I look, if you and I own the business, we probably wouldn't have done it. I probably would have said, look, let's see him do it one more time. Let's see him do it again. Should have a great season. Then we're going to reward him because you can't keep asking him to play on this deal. Now, I don't know who approached whom here. That I would like to know that. Did CAA approach Howie, or did Howie approach them? Believe it or not, I would think. I don't know. Did Saquon speak up? I don't know. These deals sometimes it could be a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
But it just what Saquon did was so crazy. And let's not forget, and I could tell you as a fact, they're not doing this unless he was a high character guy. You don't do this unless a guy sets the example off the field. And there have been numerous instances when he's done that. And for the people who got upset, by the way, that they didn't let him play that game, the game late in the season to set that record. Well, I don't think anyone has a problem with it now, do they?
Absolutely not, including Saquon Barkley. And listen, he went over 2,000 yards, 2005. He is the all-time highest paid running back. Now, I know it's hard to answer this question, but I just want to get maybe your thoughts on, do they approach him here, and does that potentially help them starting Monday with free agency? Is this a move to say, hey, we need to give you more money so that we can add some pieces?
Well, Mike, see, until I see the breakdown, I can't really comment on that. I don't comment on things I don't know.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. Without knowing the deal, but
yeah.
I guess I'm saying it was your intuition kind of say, you know what? Yeah, they're probably approaching him with the hope that helps them make some moves here, because they did release Darius Slay yesterday. Gives them
Actually, not yet, Mike. Just to be clear, they have not, as of right now. I'm looking to get the personnel notice from the NFL. No, I don't think they can. Slay and James Bradberry. By the way, this is what it's about, Mike. Let's expand on Slay and Bradberry. It's really funny. It just so happens, and I have no idea, and I'll look into this if this is why they did it or part of why they did it. So it just so happens the Eagles are going to clear $36 million in total cash between Bradberry and Slay at the start of the new league year. $36 million in cash. To the dollar is exactly what they owe Slay and Bradberry. $16 million in Slay. Bradberry, none of it's guaranteed. They'll get that rebated back in cash. Now, not the cap's different. The cap's completely different. That doesn't matter. The cash is king. You talked about anybody who does contracts, Mike. It's about cash, not cap. They're getting $36 million back. more or less, and that matters to them, and that money's coming back. It's not like they didn't know this. They knew Bradberry was not going to come back at $20 million. Now with Slay, there was a little bit of a question, which is why they're keeping the door open. Maybe if they go through every option, whether it's Cooper DeJean, whether there's a free agent they like DJ Reed or somebody else out there that they may like, or via trade or the draft, if they strike out or they decide, you know what, this is not what we want to do, they could always bring Slay back at maybe half of what he was going to make in $16 million in total cash.
Yep.
But no, they're clearing $36 million in cash at the start of new league year. I believe they have to wait. I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe that with voidable contracts, you have to wait till the new league year because those contracts are void. So, but Mike, they look. Cooper DeJean is obviously an option. He was so dynamic as a nickel defender. I mean, you're talking about had he played the full season, probably the best nickel defender. And we know Fangio doesn't call him a corner; he calls him a nickel. Yeah. But he was unbelievable, Mike. I don't know what else you could expect from Cooper DeJean. I mean, he was just phenomenal. Just imagine had he been there from the beginning, who knows how great this defense would have been.
Good point there too. He missed the first 4 weeks of the season, so he was behind and had to catch up a little bit. So the Eagles decide to move on from Slay. We think he has said he wants to play one more year. Philadelphia, Detroit, he has admitted. And if it's not one of those two, does he just say, what's my offer, Philly? If Philly says, I mean, I like it earlier. Did they kind of approach him like Brandon Graham and say, hey, if you want to play at this low ball number, you can come back if you want? Or does he want to play at what he's worth?
Well, obviously he's not worth $60 million. There are 64 starting NFL corners. He's the oldest by far. It's really unprecedented what he's been able to do. I get that he's not, the tape shows he's not close to the same player he was, but he's still a good player. And no, is his money for 1 year $8 million? Is it $10 million? Is it $6 million with incentives to get it up to $10 million? Mm-hmm. That's something a team will have to look at. Now, he did admit on his podcast that he was very close to signing with Baltimore. Then Dom DeSandro, Eagles director of security, called and said, hey, we want you back. You know, you remember, Mike, this is the craziness of the situation 3 years ago. They told Drew Rosenhaus's agent and Darius that we're going to release you. And then 4 to 5 hours later, not only did they not release him, he had no guaranteed money left in his contract. They wound up guaranteeing 2 years. That was the strangest in 27 years of covering the NFL, Mike. That's my top 3 strangest contract moments. There have been a couple that were weird. That was the strangest one that I could remember. No, it has nothing to do with this one. The Eagles have committed that they're definitely releasing him. They want to clear that cash up, and they'll get just over $6 million back in cap credit, but it's about cash. Now, Mike, the problem with free agency is, and as Jeff and I are going to go over, we have a show where we're going to go over potential free agent targets for the Eagles. Mike, I could tell you, at cornerback, it's not very good. It's DJ Reed of the Jets, who's more of a number 2 corner, good football player. Really is a nice player. That was a good signing by former GM Joe Douglas. After that, it's really a bunch of mid-level free agents. It's Nate Hobbs, who could play inside or outside, nice player, a lot of injuries, but good football player. Javarius Ward of the 49ers. Carlton Davis, who got hurt the last 2 seasons. Some people think he's on the downward slide. Ironically, a former Eagles tie-in there with Asante Samuel Jr. His dad, of course, played for the Eagles. Christian Fulton. Again, they're mid-level guys. Stephon Gilmore will be a Hall of Famer. He's probably got 1 year left in him, Mike. So that's the thing here, why the Eagles have left the door open for Slay to come back potentially. Right. Potentially. It's just not a very good group. Now, we also have to see who gets cut. There might be some corners being cut.
Well, I want to, so you mentioned Cooper. We talked about this with Jeff yesterday. I want to get your take on it.
Sure.
Is Cooper, hey, I want to play outside corner. You'll play wherever they ask him to. You make more money on the outside.
Yep.
Rodgers, is he in the mix? Kaylee Ringo, Eli Ricks. There's a lot of interesting dominoes that kind of come here. You can move DeJean to the outside. Now you got to find out. You're right back to square one looking for a nickel.
All right, so I'm told on Rodgers, I put this out on our show Tuesday, on Monday. He wants to be a starting corner. So I guess potentially if he can't find a starting job, I'm sure the Eagles would like to have him back. We'll see what that looks like. But not a choice. By the way, it wasn't close in training camp. Rodgers completely beat him out. In that role, Ringo's pretty good. Like if you don't have to play very much, he hasn't shown the ability to be a starter, Mike. Let's be honest about it. He's got ideal length. He could run fast at a straight line, but he's not fluid. Like Rogers, he's smaller. He's not the athlete that Coop DeJean is. Now with DeJean, it's strictly their call. You're 100% right though, Mike. Nickel corners. Sorry, Vic Fangio. Nickel defenders don't make as much as outside corners. It's not close. So, yeah, eventually, this could be an issue for him and his agent to play outside. Now, is there no one's ever broken the bank. I'm talking really paid a nickel defender. If he's, the Eagles will do it. If he stays as a nickel this season and the following season, 26, who's to say they don't pay him $20+ million a season and break the mold? With Howie doing the right thing and Jeffrey doing right by their players,
right?
You never want to rule that out, but you're absolutely right. Nickel defenders just simply don't make cornerback money.
Before we roll here, real quick on Bradberry. I mean, that was kind of a fait accompli, I guess.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, I talked to someone last week who knows James very well. More better than not, he wants to play again. Obviously, his career is next to being over. Great guy, by the way. Class human being, really good leader, good person, helps younger players. But look, I don't blame the Eagles for giving them what they did. Had he not gotten hurt, they planned to keep him on the roster because of guaranteed money of about $12 million last season. They didn't know he would go down. He would take the slide that he did. There's no way to predict that. He kind of came out of nowhere after being cut by the Giants and was a second-team All-Pro. So, that's James had a nice career, but it's close to coming to an end here.
All right, we'll leave you with this. Adam Kaplan, Deebo Samuel. Give us a quick overview on what this means for Washington. The Niners decide to move him for a 5th-round pick. I'm imagining they had to do something to try to get Purdy signed, so they take a 5th-rounder for Deebo here. And now the Commanders have this new toy. How he fits there, what does that mean in the NFC East?
Yeah, let's just take the NFC. We'll talk more about this on Friday when I have more time. But, look, the Washington severely overachieved. Yes, Jaden Daniels was elite. He was phenomenal. As a rookie, he was maybe the best we've ever seen. Certainly one of the best rookie quarterbacks we've ever seen. They just need to get him help. I mean, Olamide Zaccheaus, a former Eagle who really didn't play very much and get much of a chance, he was a quasi-starter for them. He was a free agent. De'Ami Brown is a free agent. They had to do something. They tried to get Brandon Ayuk, Washington, prior to the draft. It fell through. They could not agree on compensation of what the Niners wanted. But they got Deebo. Deebo is a specialty type receiver. You better know how to use him. Cliff Kingsbury is a guy who's very creative. I expect him to be used the right way. Probably as a running back, a slot receiver, a move receiver. But he is not a deep threat, not even close to that. He's a run after the catch receiver. They still need help, though, at receiver. They're not done yet, as I understand it, at receiver.
Well, as you see, the Commandos, as Adam likes to call them, are coming after teams now, and that's their first move. It all starts Monday. We'll preview it more on Friday during Football at 4 right here on the Sports Bash. Adam Kaplan and the crew inside the Birds will have a new pod breaking down this Saquon Barkley deal. Check that out on all podcasting platforms. Thanks, Adam.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, Adam Kaplan, everybody. Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast here on a Tuesday edition on the big day where, Saquon Barkley gets that. What happened, how this happened, what does it mean, the cap considerations. Everybody's kind of trying to put this together. And for my money is the Eagles did right by Saquon Barkley. Is it a smart decision? We only will know that when we know the breakdown of the contract. But the $36 million guaranteed money he ends up getting puts him in a situation where I imagine, and I'm just saying, I imagine this helps the Eagles out. They probably approach him saying, if we can give him more money, which he already deserves, let's do it now, and that can help us do X, Y, or Z. I don't know what X, Y, or Z means. How much money does that give them on Monday to pick up the phone and either look, I don't even know that there's a free agent on the market that the Eagles want to go full flight after, right? If you're listening out there, is there a free agent on the market that, let's break this down real quick. They don't need anybody on the offensive line, okay? They're not putting money into a starting offensive line level player. They've got either Becton's comes back or Tyler Steen plays right guard. That's where the money's already there. They don't need to spend money at right guard. So I don't see a scenario where they're spending money. From my understanding, they will either bring Becton back or they will turn it over to Steen, right? The other situation is, where else on offense are they going to? Probably nowhere. You're not going to approach anybody in free agency for offense. They've got everybody signed. The whole team is back. Dotson is the third receiver. And he kind of got emerged a little bit, not to say emerged, but certainly got a little comfortable as the playoffs got around. So nothing. They don't have to spend a dime on the offensive side of the ball. So on defense, where do they go? If they're trying to spend money on defense, they're target a free agent, somebody from outside the organization. Is it an edge rusher? Is it a defensive tackle? If they lose Bond, is it a linebacker? Do they go corner if Slay goes out the door? If they had one big free agent move to make, I don't even know where I could say that it would be. I don't even know where you would look. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube. Hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can watch the show live on your phone, on your PC, wherever. You can watch it right on your television if you have the YouTube app on your smart TV, which in 2025 I think most of you do. Just bring up the YouTube app and click on Mike Gill Show. It will come up for you. The free agent class right now, all right, if you were to say, and you could text in 609-403-0973. Here you go. I don't know. You're going to DJ Reed. You're going to put that kind of money into a corner. Okay, possible. Josh Sweat is the 5th rated, and Milton Williams is the 6th rated free agent. So two of your guys are free agents. Khalil Mack, interesting guy, 34 years old. Do you give him a 1-year prove-it deal to replace maybe Brandon Graham? Where else? Where else are you looking? If you lose Bond, do you go to Greenlaw? Do you go to Nick Bolton? I'm trying to think, I guess corner if Slay doesn't come back at the price you feel comfortable with. But if you actually had this is why I'm thinking if you're making a move, it's to try to make a trade and then sign that guy, right? Sign that guy. When you trade for that guy, then to sign that guy. That, to me, is what this kind of move possibly signifies today. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Coming up, Nick's Nuggets on the way. Nick Earnshaw joins me for another edition of the Nuggets today. We'll see what Nuggets he dropped for us today on the Sports Bash. That's still to come. Plus, in the 5 o'clock hour, Rye or Cy. We'll have a little fun there as well. Sixers lose last night. By the way, Tyrese Maxey, he is out tonight as well. According to Keith Pompey, I think it's a back injury for Maxey. The season has just gotten worse for the Sixers. Maxey will miss tonight's game. Paul George, Quentin Grimes, and Justin Edwards, they're all questionable for the game tonight, which you can hear on 97.3 ESPN.
Same game parlays and slot games for days. Double the fun with the Bally Bet app. Let's
All right, 4:35, time for today's edition of the Nuggets. Knicks Nuggets here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Like it, smash it, subscribe it. Let's go. Little edition of Knicks Nuggets here for you on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Big day, Nuggets. Saquon Barkley back. If you got a Barkley jersey, you're feeling good. He's back in the fold. You got a big extension, historic extension for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, what a day it has been. Howie Roseman, I mean, gets right to work after winning a Super Bowl, the second one of his career. The grind doesn't stop for Howie. So getting Saquon locked up, and this is something the Eagles tend to do, right? They lock their guys up. They reward really good players, and they want to keep them around for a little while. Now he's getting up there into his later 20s now at this point. He'll be, now with the Eagles into his 30s. So a little interesting there, but that's okay. Saquon Barkley was a massive part of bringing the Eagles a championship this year. So you reward guys like that, right? You take care of your own, and that is exactly what Howie Roseman did. And that's the first nugget, Mike, regarding Howie Roseman. I mean, his ability to maneuver the cap, maneuver signing bonuses, utilize contracts in a way that will be cheaper down the line. This is something, Hall of Famers do at this point. Mike,
do they? Do we know anybody? Hall of Famers, I don't know anybody who has done any of the stuff that he has been able to do.
Yeah, and this is what I wanted to pose. Like, is Howie Roseman the greatest executive in Philly sports history? I think it's without a doubt he is.
There's not even a number two. I mean, who's number two?
I don't know. Pat Gillett could be in the mix for the 08 team. I mean, there's a few guys that you could mention, but I think Howie's in a league of his own. But he's the best GM in the NFL. He's got 2 Super Bowls. The roster construction's been insane. The salary cap maneuvering has been insane as well. I mean, he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. And Mike, how much longer do you think he'll be with the Eagles? Like, remember, we've talked about it multiple times. Could he go maybe down the line, go to a situation where he wants to rebuild like a Jets organization, right? Like, they've been nothing. Does he want the challenge? Will he get bored of winning here in Philadelphia and putting all of these teams together? Because at some point, when you're the best, you want to try a challenge. And I mean, that's something you got to think about down the line, looking way, way maybe ahead.
I said this before. I think we debated about it, and I said, look, if I'm the Jets or somebody, I go after and ask them. Just throw money at the guy and say, hey, come here, and we're a horrible franchise. Fix us. And that could change your legacy. Now your legacy becomes how many Super Bowls? I've got 2. Can I win 3? Can I win 4? Because he's already regarded as the best GM in the game, maybe the best GM in sports. I guess the next challenge, listen, this is a conversation we had years ago with Gino Auriemma when UConn was winning year after year after year after year, and I'm like, how is that enjoyable? Like, at what point do you need a new challenge? Some people need that new challenge. You're the best college coach, you want to try the pros. And a lot of times they find out that challenge isn't as easy as they thought. Like Gino, I was like, okay, you're winning at UConn. Maybe you try the WNBA and go to that league. Now, back at the time, the WNBA wasn't as high profile as it was now, but he may have been able to help elevate that league. He never did it. He's still at UConn. Does Howie say, I've achieved everything, it's time for me to go? Here's why I don't think he will. Because part of what Howie does so well is tied to Lurie signing the checks. If he goes to the Jets and tries to tell, what's his name? Woody Johnson over there, hey, I need a $36 million check today. Woody Johnson's going to tell him to go pound sand and go play more Madden. No, not happening. So he is tied to Mr. Lurie writing the checks. Now, Lurie writes the check. Roseman says, hey, I need $36 million. Can you write that check? Lurie says yes. They're tied together, but Roseman is a Hall of Famer and will go down as potentially one of the more innovative general managers in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. The fact he gets Barkley locked up and is now cap hit heading into next year is cut in half to around $6 million. It was at $13 million, now around $6 million heading into next season. Just masterful work by Howie. It makes you wonder, who do they bring back? Do they bring back Bond? Do they bring back a Milton Williams? Or at least bring back a Becton? Because according to Jimmy Kempski of the Philly Voice, you look at next year, the only guy unsigned from this year's roster on the offensive side of all the starters is Mekhi Becton. Next year, it's Jahan Dotson, Goddard, Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Becton. I'd expect, Howie, you might even get a notification about Cam Jurgens at some point soon, right? Like, they're going to want to lock him up for years to come as well. And, you know, you just look at some of the big names on this roster. Hurts is signed through 2028. Saquon Barkley signed through 2028. A.J. Brown signed through 2028. Devontae Smith signed through 2028. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson also signed through 2028. You have a massive window now with your core group. All of the most important players on that offense, I mean, they're all signed for years and years to come now for the next 3-4 years. I mean, that's massive. The fact he was able to get it done years in advance and it'll be a cheaper cap hit down the line, props to him.
I can't even think, like, okay, they signed Barkley to this $41 million extension. Maybe it helps them add a free agent. I don't even know. If they had cap space to sign a free agent, I don't even know a guy that I would want to go, like, who do they need?
Well, you go out, you could go make the trade. No free agent, really.
Right. I didn't mention, I said, if I had cap space to sign, if I was to sign the biggest or best free agent I can, I don't even know, and I mentioned right before he came on, maybe it's for the trade and then give Garrett or somebody a contract extension. But if you said the Eagles can now go out and sign a free agent, I don't even know who they should target in free agency. I mean, maybe if you told me you can go get the best corner on the market, go get DJ Reed and play him across from Quinyon Mitchell, maybe. But other than that, okay, maybe if I lost Zach Bond, can I go sign Nick Bolton? But that's it. I mean, even if I could be a player in free agency, I really don't need anything.
Well, that's props to him as well because he's drafted so well. I mean, you have all these young players on cheap deals. So you're like looking at it, you're like, man, they don't really need too much. I mean, maybe you get some depth pieces. Maybe you bring back a Darius Slay after cutting him. Maybe he takes a little bit less money here. So that's what they've done. They've positioned themselves to essentially run it back with the similar roster. And maybe add. You go get a Myles Garrett. You bring back a Zach Bond. You maybe bring back a Mekhi Becton. So that's what you're doing at this point because every championship team loses players. And they're going to keep that to possibly a minimum, very minimal losses here in this offseason, Mike.
Yeah, listen, they are in a position now where they locked up everybody on the offensive side of the ball for a window together for like 2 to 3 more seasons that they keep playing together. If they lose Becton on offense, I think they just
slide Steen in there. I mean, Steen,
right.
They like
You don't need to spend money on a free agent guard. You just put Steen in that spot. If you lose Milton Williams, if you lose Josh Sweat, if you lose Zach Bond, then yes, you probably have to sign somebody to replace those guys. Obviously, you can't let them all go and not replace them. That would be it. I mean, that's where you're at. Either bring 1, 2, 3, 2 of the 3, 1 of the 3 back, and if they walk, then you look to replace them.
And if you're a free agent, this is a destination now. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles are a destination spot. If you are a free agent on the market, if you're an agent or you're a player, I'm telling my agent, hey, can you check in with Howie? What's he got going on and cooking in Philly over there? I mean, I just saw them win the Super Bowl. They were utterly dominant. They lock up their guys for a long time. They give them a fair deal. Can you go see what's going on there? So I feel like Philadelphia, especially in football, baseball, because of Bryce Harper, they're becoming a destination spot, Mike.
Listen, the way they approached Barkley today is not normal.
No.
Right? A business doesn't go to their employee and say, you've done a great job. I want to reward you. Doesn't happen in my company. I know that much. Hey, you're doing a great job. Here's more money. No, not happening. So for the Eagles to do that, that is not normal. I don't know how many people out there listening where their company comes to them and says, you know what, you did a great job. Here's money you didn't even ask for. It's not normal.
No, it's not. So, and other players are going to see that. They're going to see that. And they're going to be like, hey, I like what's going on over there. They reward guys. They pay them over there in Philadelphia. So just all-time chess move, smart move by Howie Roseman. All right, I'm going to move along to nugget number 2 here, Mike. And this has been grinding my gears, and we're going to stick with the Eagles here, okay? The stuff with A.J. Brown, we know what, he said at the parade. He's not a diva, etc. We know some of the stuff that's going on, but nothing crazy. It's kind of been more media-based for the most part. And this situation's really media-based. There's reports coming out from Matthew Berry of NBC. Also, you're hearing it in New England sports talk radio. You're also hearing it in national radio about the Eagles moving off A.J. Brown. I have never seen such a desperate move. Something just coming out of thin air for the most part, because the reports are the Patriots called Howie Roseman at A.J. Brown, and you have pundits trying to move the Eagles on from A.J. Brown, saying they don't need him. First of all, why on earth would you move off A.J. Brown right now, who's in the prime of his career, been to 2 Super Bowls since he's gotten here, is Jalen Hurts' number 1 target, one of the best receivers in football. You just gave him an extension. I think this is one of the most made-up media stories and rumors I have ever seen. It's completely manufactured. And the fact that they're calling him, he's a diva, all this stuff, and he's right. Because, this is just made up at this point. The fact that there's reports out of the Patriots called about A.J. Brown, why on earth would you give up A.J. Brown at this point?
Total fabrication, a total made up, total boredom. You're in New England. The team stinks. You need something to talk about. You completely make it up out of thin air. In fact, this is the first I'm even hearing of it. I mean, whoever's talking about this, you said national radio is talking about this?
National radio. Colin Cowherd brought it up about the Eagles should probably trade A.J. Brown because, he chats. He's a chatterbox. And then you have New England radio talking about it because there's reports the Patriots inquired about A.J. Brown. And I just don't understand why on earth there are rumors about A.J. Brown being traded, moved from the Eagles. It makes no sense. It's absolute craziness in my estimation. And it's just always is with A.J. Brown that they're trying to trade him or get rid of him or there's something wrong. The guy's fine. The Eagles are fine. Jalen and him have had a little bit of, disagreements before. It's not like it doesn't seem like they hate each other. If you watch any of the podcasts A.J. Brown is going on, he's talked about this at length. So it's just craziness. It's lazy. And honestly, it's one of the most fabricated stories I've ever seen.
Yeah, listen, I don't think the Eagles are any rush to try to move on from A.J. Brown. They won the Super Bowl. They signed him. They gave him more money. It just doesn't make any sense at this point. You have everybody lined up. You just went and approached Saquon Barkley. You got your quarterback. You got the 2 receivers. You found a way to keep every one of those guys, plus Mailata, plus Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, all signed. It's just, this is your window. You wouldn't move somebody off the window.
No, you wouldn't go out and trade for A.J. Brown, move off the window. You've been to the Super Bowl twice in 3 years with him on the roster. He's made a significant impact. He's had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. There's no reason for any of these rumors to come up because he's a little chatty. It makes no sense to me. A.J. Brown, listen, he's got a personality. He's an interesting guy. All right, fine. A lot of wide receivers are. And you just won a Super Bowl with him on the roster. You're not going to move off one of your best players just because. It's not going to happen. Howie Roseman's a smart enough guy. We just had a whole nugget on Howie Roseman on why they wouldn't do this at this point. Prime of his career, you're not moving off him. You have an amazing wide receiver core. You have a lot of weapons for Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts one of his favorite weapons. So it just makes no sense.
Makes no sense. And I would think that it's the kooky season. Get ready for more kookiness.
It's going to be a lot of fun, Mike. All right, 2 pack of nuggets for you on this Tuesday afternoon.
All right. I'm surprised I got no Phillies Nuggets today with Max
Ran out of
Kepler
time.
going yard piece.
Yeah, it's spring training. It's March 4th.
Well,
Relax on
well,
Kepler,
Trea
okay?
Turner talked about hitting leadoff. Did you see that too?
I
He
did.
said,
I saw that clip as well. That was my third nugget. I was going to get it in there, but we ran out of time, unfortunately.
All right, those are the Nuggets today. Nick's Nuggets are back again tomorrow here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Nick.
All right, Mike, I'll talk to you.
All right, there you go. Nick's Nuggets today on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Like, subscribe, be a part of the show. Here, all you need to do is text 609-403-0973 if you want to get involved. 609-403-0973. Dan in EHT asks, is Slay a Hall of Famer? I think so. He is without question one of the greatest underappreciated Eagles signers of all time. They actually traded for him. It was a 3rd and 5th round pick for Darius Slay. I don't think he's an NFL Hall of Famer. Great player, though. I don't know that he's a Hall of Fame player, but great player. Matt Kate May says, Mike, we saw what investing in good running back did for the offense. I think signing Zach Bond was and would be the same impact for the defense. Matt, we'll see if you're right about that. I agree. Zach Bond is the guy that I would try to target if I was Philadelphia. I would say, look, we got to bring him back. The same impact Barkley made, Bond made for our defense. We shall see. It all starts Monday. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. We got so much happening, including a big day. Saquon Barkley signs an extension with the Eagles, $41 million, 36 guaranteed. And, of course, the Eagles now move on to free agency starting on Monday with Saquon Barkley back. He's here for 2 more years. And that is an extension. Remember, he got a 3-year deal, so that will be – this year is already in the book. So he had 2 more years on the contract. He'll have 2 more after that, and now that keeps him here till 2028. Was it a smart move? Was it a decision they should have made? He's a 28-year-old running back who just had 345 touches this year. And you look at that element of it, yes, he went over 2,000 yards. Is he ever going to top the season he just had? The Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. You can download the app in the Apple Store, Google Play, and, of course, you can watch the show live on YouTube and on X platform, formerly Twitter, at Mike Gill Show. We've got so much happening, of course, with the Barkley news. James Bradberry also released today. So James Bradberry and Darius Slay have both been released the last 2 days, so they move on from those two. Good chance, I don't say good chance, 50-50 chance, I guess you can say, that Darius Slay is back. We talked about that with Adam Kaplan earlier today. I think when you look at it, the Barkley deal can be debated. We've had a lot of text messages coming in, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. And a lot of people have looked at it and said, why sign him now? Why give him $41 million? And one of the reasons is he just had the best season that he's probably ever going to have. You are probably never going to get a better season from Saquon Barkley than you just got, right? 2,000 yards, probably not going to top that. So if you don't top that, what kind of player is he? I don't want to say next year. Maybe next year he gets 1,700 yards. Maybe next year he does have a monster year, and you're looking at a guy who's still one of the top 3 running backs in football, maybe even the best running back in football. I don't know. But at what point do you look at that contract and say, well, now we have that Saquon Barkley contract? At what point do you look at that deal and kind of say, all right, well, that deal is probably not a good deal? Did you have him signed to the perfect deal? It's almost like when they signed Hassan Reddick. They signed Reddick. He was under market value. And when they signed Reddick for under market value, he had a monster season. So they got him in the season he had, 18 and a half sacks? Then the next year, he kind of falls a little bit. And you take a look at what the Eagles did. He wanted to come back the third year. He wanted more money. Well, the Eagles said no, and they end up trading him away. But they don't do that with Barkley. With Barkley, they decide to pay him the cashola. Is it a smart move, or was it penny wise, pound foolish? It's another edition of Rye or Cy. Ryan Rothstein is back. Let's go with today's edition of Rye or Cy on a day where Saquon Barkley gets the bag.
Yeah, man, you laid a lot out there for us. So let's evolve everything that you just outlined, and I'll start right for Rye or Cy. I'll start with the Saquon news, and to me, I love it. I love it. I'm smiling ear to ear. It's another typical Howie move. It's a no-brainer for me for so many reasons. One, it's the obvious move, right? This guy's the most important Philadelphia Eagle on either side of the ball, right? This guy is your identity on offense. He made Jalen Hurts better. He made your offensive line better, your wide receivers better, everyone better. He is the reason why you win that Super Bowl, essentially. I know the defense was outstanding, but he is a huge catapulting reason to get this team over the hump. And you set the tone now. Like, you don't have to pay him a year down the road, 2 years down the road. You set the market price for this guy. You have a happy employee, a deserving employee to get the extension, and now you're ready to get back to work. I think it's absolutely genius. I think there's no reason not to do it. I know he's already under contract, so yeah, you say, screw it. You just keep him under contract. There's no reason. But that's not how championship level teams operate, right? It's clear how the Eagles operate, and this is how they do things, Gill. So I think it's another Howie type of move, which is a home run.
A lot there, right? Listen, you can certainly poke at it from all the angles and say he gave you the best season that he's ever given you. You're not topping that year. I mean, if you do, then you really are getting your bang for your buck.
He gave us over 2,000 yards. So I mean, we're not saying much with that, right? Just because he may not ever have that year, right?
Oh, I get it. I'm saying,
yeah.
So you're paying him for a past performance. You had to some point say, listen, I already paid him for the best year that he's ever gotten. I'm going back to the Hassan Reddick deal. He gave you 18 and a half sacks. You didn't go to Hassan Reddick and say, hey, man, you got 18 and a half sacks. Let me give you more money.
That's not apples. That's not apples to apples, and you know that. I mean, it's a fair, thing to bring up, but it's not even close. They're not even in the same stratosphere. Hassan Reddick's value compared to Saquon Barkley's value in those given years. Wouldn't you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, you got edge rusher is way more prioritized than running back. Would you agree with that?
If I'm getting that type of value and impact from Saquon, and you also look at what the Eagles already have on defense, no, absolutely not. I mean, listen.
You don't think that teams look at the draft? Teams will draft an edge rusher in the top 5 in the draft. They're not drafting a running back in the top 5.
Absolutely. Edge rusher is extremely important, but I'm looking at as it relates to this Eagles team, right? And you look at the historic year that Saquon just had and his impact.
My point is,
that's
you had
the separation there. That's
the separation is this. Well, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, Saquon had a more impactful year than Reddick did. But Reddick played a position that they value more, and they didn't approach him and say, hey, you had 18 and a half sacks. Let me give you more money. No, they said, we got the best year that we could get out of this guy. He's not going to top that. The next year he did not top that, and then they traded him away.
Right. But so a couple things there, and all fair, more than fair points. Just because someone may have already given you the best season statistically, does that mean you shouldn't go ahead and do what the Eagles just did? Right. I would say that's how poor employers operate. Right? Like good employers operate how the Eagles operate, and that is
listen, as a
exactly what they just did.
As a business decision, we all yearn for the place of employment to approach you and appreciate you. But my point is that's not normal. Now, the Eagles should be applauded for that, 100%. I'm not going to rip the Eagles for doing right by their employee. But my point is, in the past, they've had the opportunity to do this, and they did not do it with Hassan Reddick. He had an equivalent year. I mean, 18 and a half sacks is a monster season. And they didn't say, hey, you deserve more money. They let him basically play for under market value. Now, they approached Saquon Barkley after a 2,000-yard season, which is historic. I get it. And it's a situation where he's 28 years old. You had him for 2 more years. Did you not want to follow him up the next year and see if he still was on that same level before you made the decision? Now, I'm not saying they deserve to be ripped here. I'm just looking at the other side of this. Of this, to me, we're getting text message all day of people scratching their heads. Why would they approach him? Why would they do this? They didn't have to sign. It's like the Embiid thing. Why'd you sign Embiid? You didn't have to sign Embiid. Why'd you do this? Well, the organization did right by Embiid. They're getting ripped for it.
Yeah. I think let's not put Embiid and Saquon in the same sentence either, right? Right. Saquon's coming off a Super Bowl win. And you also look at his value as it relates to this offense, and you look at his value as it relates to Jalen Hurts. I think that's enough said right there. And it's a gamble, right? Anytime you give a player an extension, it's always a gamble. Life in professional sports, particularly from the front office perspective, it's a gamble. Right, whether it's the draft, free agency, extensions, trades, etc. We all know that. Anyone listening to this conversation, right, and understands that. That's part of it. So, yeah, we may look back on this and sort of shake our heads and say, you know what, that was a Howie swing and a miss. But I think a lot would have to transpire that would surprise us, MG. Like, Saquon Barkley just turned 28 years old. Saquon Barkley is well known as one of, if not the hardest working NFL players on the planet, right? Like, you trust his work, you trust his process, you trust what you've seen this past year in the building every day and his value to this locker room. And you say, you know what? We're actually going to take a little bit of a risk now, and it's going to end up being a saving cost in a year or two. That's how I'm looking at it.
And it could. I'm not
Right.
disagreeing with that. I'm sure if they approached him to do this, they feel like they're getting some financial benefit somewhere along the line in some capacity here. But I go back to, like, hey, we're praising Roseman for approaching him and giving them this deal when they didn't have to. And in the same breath, we ripped the Sixers for doing the same thing, approaching their guy when they didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Sixers essentially did it for the same reason, so that they could have some financial flexibility, because his contract number would be lower if they gave him a 3-year extension as opposed to a 4 or 5-year extension had they not approached him when they did.
For sure. And, once again, I love the conversation. I think it's an interesting back and forth. So I know you're just sort of looking at the other side of this here, but for me, it's not the same thing as the Sixers, right? Like, it's the same as far as giving a star player a contract extension when you don't absolutely need to. But I'll also add this: how much is the value of the positive PR on the Eagles today, right? Like, you go on social media right now, the entire world is saying, wow, see, that's why the Eagles are a team that people want to play for. That's why Myles Garrett wants to go to Philly. That's why Philly has become a destination in the NFL. When we talk about the Sixers not being a destination, right? Well, how did the Eagles become a destination? By doing exactly what they did today with Saquon Barkley. So you look at the value on the positive impact on your identity and perception around the world and for this league. I think that also holds a lot of weight to this as well.
The biggest thing here is that the Eagles, again, show free agents and anybody, this is where you want to be. My thing is, I don't know right now, if I was to say, okay, you have carte blanche to sign whoever you want, I don't even know who I approach. I don't really need anybody. Not that, listen, you got to get better. You can't rest on your laurels, but there's no definitive move outside of a trade for like a Myles Garrett, yes, that this team needs to make right now with a free agent that's available.
So how much of a factor do you think exactly that was in all of this, right? Like, you look at the Eagles' needs. I posted jokingly like an hour ago, we're trying to have these conversations about the Eagles. They don't exist. Like, we're talking about Bond and Becton for a Super Bowl champion right now. Like, there is very minimal needs and worries as it relates to the Eagles on either side of the ball. You look at all the players returning. So that has to be a huge factor in this, right? As to why they did it.
Well, listen, and again, we talked to Adam Kaplan the last hour, and it's like, hey, the contract's not out there. What the cap implications are, he got $36 million up front, so I would imagine they're getting some sort of cap relief somewhere along the line here. They are valuing that cap relief to say, I'll pay you more money to help us get more cap relief somewhere. So somewhere they have to be thinking, all right, we have to sign Juergens, we have to sign this guy, and maybe we want to pay extra to bring Bond back.
Right. So do you think, I look at this deal and say, all right, there's no way that Bond's coming back. Do you think that that's a possibility still? Do you think Bond's still on the table? I mean, anything's possible, but
I think all four guys are on the table in some capacity. Like, in other words, not all four together, but hey, if somebody signs Bond, okay, Milton Williams. If somebody signs Milton Williams, okay, we go to Bond. I think they want to try to talk to any and all four of them. I don't think they bring back all four, but I wouldn't be surprised if they figured out a way to bring two back.
Who do you think is the priority out of those four?
For me, it would be Bond for the reason we just saw with Barkley. You prioritize a position, running back, that you generally don't prioritize, and it changed your offense. You brought in a guy for way under market value, or it turned out being under market value, because quite frankly, look, Bond, when he signed, had no value. He was lucky to get signed by somebody. But you saw what he meant to your defense, and now you have to put a higher value on that spot, much like you just did with Barkley.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say the only way that Bond doesn't come back, which I believe this is still going to happen, is someone backs up, quote, the Brinks truck for Bond. And it's just not prudent for the Eagles and Howie to match that type of a deal. But, we'll see. Maybe the market isn't as high on Bond as we anticipate. So that's something to think about. I wanted to backpedal a little bit to Debo coming to the division with the Washington Commanders. You look at what Washington has now, and you say, all right, that's a formidable offense. But, for me, as someone covering and watching this Eagles team and watching what Howie's continuing to do, I'm not worried by it. Like, maybe worried's the wrong word here, but the Eagles are still head and shoulders above everyone else in this division. That's including Washington. Do you disagree? Do you sort of sigh at that and say, you know what, that Debo addition moves the needle a little bit closer?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, listen, they came. Listen, here's the one thing with you got to keep in mind. I think Washington's schedule is going to be more challenging. What does that mean for them? You got to keep that in mind, perspective too. Their schedule is going to be. So is the Eagles, by the way. Philadelphia, the crossover divisions that both the NFC East is going to have to play, the two divisions that they're going to have to play, makes everybody in the NFC East schedule more challenging. Yeah. Can Washington week to week now get up to that level? Last year they played a last place or a third place schedule, so 3 games they had were a little lesser, and then the crossover games last year were not nearly as challenging as it's going to be. So Washington is going to have to go through a much more challenging schedule. I do think, though, not only is it the Debo to me is a signal that they're coming after you. They're trying to come after you.
Yeah, and I think it's also a testament to the Eagles because, listen, Washington's doing things differently. They're trying to be aggressive, so it's not necessarily always all about Philly, but just for the fact of how aggressive and how awesome Howie and the Eagles are every offseason, that puts the pressure, obviously, on teams within your division. And I think Washington is feeling that pressure from the Philadelphia Eagles by what Howie continues to do. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Well, and this is why I think Howie, and I've said this from the start of the offseason, I think Howie will be the Dodgers. We won the Super Bowl, and I'm going to go out and get the best that I can. I went out and got the best pitcher. On the Dodgers, I went out and got the best pitcher on the market, the second best pitcher on the market, too. I went out and got Blake Snell, a Cy Young Award winner. And everybody's complaining that they went out and got better. I think that's when 2 weeks from now, when the free agent first wave has settled, I think people are going to look at Philadelphia and say, I don't know if it's in free agency, though. That'll be the thing. They might not make a move on that first day of free agency. In fact, they might lose a guy or two, and you might be like, well, what are they doing? Why would they let these guys go and then not do anything? Well, then that would say there's a trade up their sleeve.
All right, so speaking on that, there has been some talk, and mainly this noise and chatter is coming from up north. It's coming from New England territory, but there has been some, reputable NFL insiders that have backed this chatter regarding the Patriots. Vrabel's the new head coach up there. He has a very strong relationship with Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown, and that trade has been clearly pointed out as something the Patriots would like to pull off. Do you think there's any possibility that sort of shocks us and could take place?
No, I don't. I feel like they have this window with this guy. They're all signed. They're here. I don't know why. So Nuggets brought this up last hour, and I had not heard it all day. I mean, so apparently the New England sports radio has been talking about it all day. Mm-hmm. I have no idea why the Eagles, unless there is just such a crack in that locker room. You just won the Super Bowl, though. So, okay, maybe the Patriots did call about the availability and that they'll do whatever it takes. Well, what would it take? I can't imagine that the Eagles feel that A.J. Now, keep in mind, A.J. Brown is still in his late 20s. He's not like a guy in his, 30s. He still has, I think he's 27 or 28 years old, A.J. Brown. He's not an old guy. This just doesn't pass the sniff test, the smell test for me.
No, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What would make Howie and the Eagles do that? It would only have to be a contract situation, like to move up money, free up money. But it's not you're paying reasonable a dollar for AJ Brown right now. 3 years, $96 million, under contract until 2026. So yeah, I don't see that happening unless there's like a move for another move that we just don't see if we're Howie Roseman. But
I listen. If Howie Roseman thinks, though, here's a question: that he moved A.J. Brown and that would allow him to make a move for Myles Garrett, maybe. And here would be the other. Here would be the other part there. I just signed Saquon Barkley. We ran for 2,000 yards. I'm not maximizing A.J. Brown. In other words, I'm paying him to be a number one receiver. But in our offense, I don't need that level of receiver because of how run-centric we are.
Yeah, interesting. But is his value still that important in A.J. Brown, right? Just to have Saquon and have A.J. and have Devontae, that's what makes the run game so dynamic, and that's what makes them so hard to game plan week to week. I'll ask this. To your point that you just alluded to.
Well, real quick, though, unless they think, do we want to go through a whole nother year with AJ where he's not getting the amount of touches that he really wants?
Right. And maybe AJ sort of wants more. He wants to go play for his buddy in Vrabel. That all could be fair and valid. Would you trade AJ Brown if it meant acquiring Myles Garrett?
Oh, man, that's a hard one, man. I think that's hard. Because now you're talking about A.J. Brown is a legit all-pro level player for another all-pro level player. Before, you're asking me Nolan Smith, who I don't think is an all-pro level player.
No, not yet, at least. Nowhere near the level either of those guys are on. It's a tough one, man. I don't know. I think I would lean yes because you have Devontae. You have all the weapons that you have offensively. Myles Garrett is a huge addition. I don't know. It's a tough one, man.
Yeah, I that's another point. Does A.J. Brown, and your point is valid, does having him on the field, even though you're not throwing in the ball, allow Barkley to be a better version of himself because of Brown's presence? And if you trade Brown, who's taking that spot? Do they say, we could trade Brown. We really like Dotson. We'll put Dotson on the outside and have Devontae and Dotson, and then, we get somebody young to play the slot.
That's a big drop-off. Obviously, it's a big drop-off. Another thing to consider, Dallas Goedert, if I'm not mistaken, he's only under contract for one more year. That impacts things as far as your weapons offensively for the future.
Yeah, no, and listen, I think Goddard was already a guy that you're probably thinking he's the one guy on offense. It's like I think he's about 30 years old now, so he's the one guy that you're probably thinking about moving on from and maybe doing something different this year. But the two receivers are still in their 20s, as is the running back, as is the quarterback, as is mostly everybody on that offensive line except for Lane Johnson.
Yeah. It's and Dallas Goedert's had injury issues, most notably this past season. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. When he was on the field, he felt like a top 5 guy at that position, but
he is
out of the lineup.
Yeah, he is the one guy that every year you're like, this is the big year for Goddard, and then he gets hurt and misses 4 weeks.
Right, and that impacts everything. And it seems like the addition of Saquon has sort of thrown him and his role out of the loop. You're not sure what his role is right now with this team, although he was huge in the postseason.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. That is our first segment of Rye or Cy. We'll have another one coming up here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. I want to tell you about my friends over at Game Day Men's Health, Egg Harbor Township. 1 in 4 men, guys, have low testosterone levels, and whether you're trying to get back out on the field, play a little Sunday afternoon basketball, softball, or you want to get back in the intimacy situation, you want to feel your best, and they can test you out. Stop in for a free consultation, fast appointments, immediate results. They can do it all on site. You get your levels in 15 minutes. Game Day Men's Health, Egg Harbor Township, English Creek Avenue, 609-365-7088. Visit them on English Creek Avenue or GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Great spot, easy to do, very comfortable setting. Guys, stop in there. Tell them Mike Gill from the Sports Bash sent you. More Sports Bash coming up. 97.3 ESPN. All right, 532, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. I'm going to read you 5 guys real quick. These are possible trade names, all right? These are possible trade names that could be available in a trade. Now, I don't know. These are the most talked about trade guys. One is Myles Garrett. Obviously, you would have interest there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Cooper Kupp. So would you trade A.J. Brown and then turn around and go get Cooper Kupp? I mean, is that something they're maybe thinking about? I don't know.
Doesn't really make sense unless A.J. Brown's asking out. So nothing there for me.
Let's see. Deebo Samuel just got traded. Jair Alexander, the corner. That would be somebody. Okay, he's a corner. You just got rid of Slay. If you want to replace somebody to play corner, then you go that route. It's a possibility.
I would be curious as to what the contract looks like with him. You know, I mean, we're really grasping at straws, don't you think, as far as needs with this team?
That's my point. Is if you're looking to upgrade in trade and or free agency, I just don't know where you're looking at this stage. I mean, I think it's going to be that's why I think it's going to be an interesting offseason.
Yeah, I just don't know that. No, not I don't know. I know that there's really not much that needs to be done, right? So it's really just how should they go about this offseason? Like,
if I'm the Eagle, one of the things I try to do is see, and I don't think he has any value whatsoever, but is anybody interested in Kenny Pickett? I mean, that's where I can do something there because I feel okay with Tanner McKee as my backup. So does anybody want Kenny Pickett? Does that? And I only say that because can I get a 5th? Can I get a 6th? Can I get something? Because I don't think anybody wants Kenny Pickett. But, hey, anybody interested in Kenny Pickett? You need a better backup? Are you a team that values a better backup? Because they don't have a ton of draft capital.
I would say the opposite. I would say, is anyone interested in Tanner McKee?
Well, I like McKee better.
So do I.
Now, you're saying because you think you can get more for McKee, I guess.
Correct. I would say potential's there, ceiling's there, right? Maybe you can get a little bit more in return.
Yeah, if somebody calls me and said, I'll give you a 3rd, fine, I'm in.
Yeah.
Sign.
Right, exactly. I think all day long. I would be surprised if they let McKee hang around also because they like him and they want to see him get an opportunity elsewhere, I would guess. That's just me guessing. I don't know.
All right, so there you go. There's a couple trade options, possibly. I mean, they're the bigger names in the trade. I mean, anybody else that would be out there, I think, would be coming out of right field.
Yeah, it would be something that we're just that's completely not on our radar for, like I said earlier, like a move for another move. So, all right, a couple other things I had that I wanted to try and work into the conversation. Something or nothing earlier today, Yankees prospects tattoo our boy Wheeler, man. Just got shelled. Couple innings down in spring training. Take anything from that?
Not necessarily. If this was, because we know in spring training, some of these guys are working on something. They might try to do something. But I would only say my takeaway is we have talked about at what point does that year come, right?
Right.
What's the year where you just go from, like Roy Halladay, Cy Young level to no good? I mean, that 3rd year for Halladay, he was not good. And then his 4th year, he was unpitchable. I mean, terrible. So I don't think Wheeler's there, but yeah, definitely something like if his next start, you're like, I mean, was his velocity down? Was his command off? I mean, the game wasn't on today. I didn't really get a chance to see what happened there. But definitely something to keep an eye on if it keeps happening.
Yeah, like it's a conversation we've had a bunch of times recently in my past couple appearances, and it's like you just don't know when that other shoe is going to drop. To your point, it's when is he going to just roll out there, Wheeler that is, and just all of a sudden not be the Wheeler that we've grown accustomed to as the norm. And that's him, and that's also Nola. It's a handful of guys on this roster. So that's my fear for this Phillies team entering this year. So something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, well, I put out that we talked about this the other day. I think it might have been yesterday. Well, today's Tuesday, so it had to be yesterday.
Yeah.
The 2025 Phillies starting rotation, I think, will be better than last year's. Right now, at Mike Gill Show, 60 agree, 60% disagree with me, 40% agree.
You said, all right, so you said better than 2011 originally. Now you
That's
say
what I said.
last year?
No. Oh, sorry. The 2025 Phillies rotation this year will be better than the 2011 Phillies.
Right. 60% agree with you?
60% disagree.
Okay. Yeah, that's closer than I would have predicted. Only 60.
60-40. 60-40 right down. It's literally perfect right down the middle. Here's the voting right there.
Wow. Yeah, I would have predicted at least 70-30, but that's crazy. We'll see. You got a good amount of votes, too. All right, a couple other things here. LeBron James, I'm just shifting gears completely for a minute because I saw this stat with LeBron, and it's just unbelievable. At 40 years old, MG, his numbers across the board are better than his MVP year for the Miami Heat in 2011. At 40 years old, LeBron James is averaging 27 over 8 boards, 7.8 assists. He's shooting like 43% from three. All of his numbers across the board better than his MVP season. And Luka's had a little bit of a boost to that as well. But I look at LeBron, and I'm not this LeBron huge supporter, but at 40 years old, man, I say he's the greatest athlete of all time, and it might not be even close. Is that fair? Is that sigh-worthy?
Not sigh-worthy at all. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, who I still believe is the great. Put it this way. When you put every element together of greatness, winner, competitiveness, the big shot, the big moment, Jordan can't be beat. But he certainly doesn't have the physical domination that James offers. That is where there's a bit of a separation. I'm not questioning James' heart or his desire or any of that, but he's just not the competitor of a Kobe or a Jordan. Is he on that level? I don't know about that. But in terms of his 40-year-old skill, I would think that he's Jordan's last year. He was in Washington. He was 39 years old. Okay, he still made the All-Star team. He showed up and played too, by the way. He scored 20 points a game.
He played 82 games too that year.
He played 82 games, and so he was still a pretty good player. But the physical nature of James's style, for him to still be able to do that at 40, that's where it's on another level. Because you get guys like Karl Malone, who were power players, Shaq, that were power. They could not play at this level. Even into their mid-30s, they started to dip a little bit. It is truly amazing what LeBron has been able to do at this advanced stage. No question about it.
Yeah, and Jordan did have a couple years off before he decided to come back and play for Washington. That's certainly a factor. And to your point, you sort of piece everything together. You say, all right, the winning, the competitive aspect, the championships. How do you factor in the longevity? And I think that's the biggest question. But for me, you look at the longevity, 20 years of this guy. I've been watching this guy in the NBA since I was 13, since I was in middle school. I mean, it's insane. He's still playing in the NBA. He's still playing at an MVP level.
Put it this way.
It's nuts.
When LeBron started, I hadn't started working here yet. I wasn't even doing this show, and I've been on the air for 20 years.
Right. I mean, you think about your life from LeBron's playing career, it's insanity. It's insanity, and we take it for granted. We really do.
Yeah, and he doesn't do himself any favors, and it didn't help that he went from Cleveland, then he did the whole thing, he went to Miami, and then he went back to Cleveland, which I think helped him out a little bit, and then he left Cleveland and went to L.A., and the whole L.A. thing, it's amazing. For a top 5 player, probably top 3 player of all time, to play for the Los Angeles Lakers, and it feels that the Lakers' tenure has fallen flat.
And he has a title there, but unfortunately it came in the bubble. So
I don't think when you said if Michael Jordan played for the Lakers, like it would be even bigger than he is. And I mean, he played for the Bulls, and the Bulls have just not done anything since he's left. But for LeBron James to play for the greatest NBA franchise in the league, and it just doesn't and I think part of it's just because it's East Coast and he's out West. So I don't think the NBA gets as much bang for the buck having a player like that play in that market, even though it's a huge market and it's a huge thing. Does LeBron feel like an all-time great Laker?
No, he doesn't. That's the short answer. But there's so many great Lakers. And to your point,
there's so many great Lakers, but he's
I know.
He's a top 5 player of all time. He's better than all of them. I mean, you can make an argument, do you like Kobe better or him? But okay, now you're getting into semantics of which player do you like better. But I would say Jordan's number 1, and then whoever you want to put, Kobe, LeBron, I mean, Wilt, I mean, he's there in that conversation, yet I don't think you think of him as this all-time great Laker. And by the way, he's played in L.A. essentially as long as he's played in Cleveland the first time he was there.
Yeah, it's been 6 years, going on 6 years, but
he's played in LA 7. This is his 7th year, and his first run in Cleveland, he went 7 seasons.
Right, there you go, and it doesn't feel like it, but how many of the top 10 greatest of all time are Lakers? So it's like you ask all-time great Laker, you're almost asking all-time great NBA player in that same question, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's like if you ask a Laker fan, does LeBron feel like a Laker?
No. I mean, it's always Kobe.
Well, it's Magic, it's Kobe, it's Kareem. He falls somewhere after those 3 generally, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The longevity as to which team you play for the longest, that holds weight to every fan base, of course. Like back to our Roy Halladay discussion when we're talking about greatest Phillies pitchers of all time. Roy Halladay is up there, but he's more of a fan favorite than a legitimate Philly all-time great.
Yeah, then this is going to be interesting because Saquon Barkley is going to fall into this category too. He's probably going to play more seasons with the Giants than he does with the Eagles, but are you going to think of him as an Eagle or a Giant?
An Eagle, because of the Lombardi, right?
Exactly. And LeBron has a championship, but as you said, it's a bubble championship, which kind of got lost in the sauce. If the Sixers would have won a bubble championship, would people say the process worked?
No, absolutely not. You know that, especially here in Philly. If they were ever going to get one, that would have been the year in the bubble.
Yeah.
In the bubble.
All right. By the way, Maxey's out tonight. I haven't seen anything else. Whether I know a lot of guys were questionable, all that jazz. By the way, some more votes are coming in on the 2025 Phillies rotation. 60% disagree, 39% agree. So we got a couple more votes on the disagree side. You can keep voting. You got a couple hours left to vote at Mike Gill Show. Vote over there. All right. Anything else you want to sneak in here?
Yeah. How about Mike Tirico last night? Did you listen to him at all?
I did.
I thought it was a joy, man, with how miserable this Sixers season has been. I didn't know that was coming at all to turn that on. And I'm like,
I had no idea. I had no idea. I did see it before the game. So I found out like about this time last night. I was like, oh, Mike Tirico's going to call the game tonight. And he's calling the game because NBC's getting the package. So I guess they're trying to promote that they're going to have games on. So he called the game, and Kate Scott basically went to the pregame show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not helping things.
Yeah, true. That's one way to look at it. It's one way to look at it.
Well, it's like I've said before about Kate. I've talked to Kate before. I've had her on podcasts before. I think she does a fine job describing the action. I'm not a huge fan of the two of them together. I think sometimes right now the team is not good, and she's a little bit too like, hey, they still have a shot for the 10 seed, and
she's not authentic. She's not
the
authentic.
market, right? The market doesn't want the 10 seed. Now, maybe the producers are making her. You're the hometown crew. Like, they don't want you to be like, hey, blast the team. That's tough. You're in a tough spot when you're doing that.
You are, but that's what makes that job difficult, is walking that fine line of still coming across.
Yeah,
authentic.
I agree. I think she's a little too positive about this team right now. This team has been miserable. Don't tell us that the 10 seed is fun. No, nobody wants the 10 seed.
and I didn't want to get too much into this, but I'll end with this thought too. To your point, Allah was great last night, and I know he's with an all-time legend, but that sort of shows you the difference.
I got to be honest. I didn't listen. Like, I wasn't like intently zoned in. So
I was. He was good, man. Allah was good. Obviously, alongside Tarico, it was a nice little change.
It was like, whoa, what's going on here? I was like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't help. You're not doing the whole thing any favors when you put Mike Tirico on the broadcast last night on your home broadcast. It's different when it's a national game. When you put him on the home broadcast and it's like, ooh, this is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. In the middle of all the garbage, he's in a big pile of poo.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right, man. Good to see you. We'll do it
Later,
tomorrow.
man. Yep.
All right, later. All right, that's Ryer's Side, another edition here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. We'll wrap up the show. Bet365 play of the day coming up next here on the Sports Bash. All right, time for the Bet365 plays of the day. We'll get you out on that. And, of course, I think last night, I know Dallas did not cover. Kyrie got hurt. That kind of sent that game sideways. Golden State was a cover last night. I had them minus 13.5. I think they won by 18 last night. The other game I played last night was what was that other game I played last night? It was the what was that game last night? Oh, it was Duke. Duke against Wake Forest last night. That was a win, 93-60. I had Duke minus 19.5. So 2-1 night for you guys last night. I got the Knicks tonight minus 4.5 against the Warriors. I got Toronto tonight getting 7.5 against the Magic. They are my Bet365 plays of the day here on the Sports Bash. One more time tonight, you got the Knicks. It's 5.5 against the Warriors. They're favored by 5.5, and it is Toronto Magic. I like Toronto tonight plus 7.5 against the Magic. They are the Bet365 plays of the day. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, that'll do it for me. Busy day today. Saquon Barkley gets the big extension. That's the big news. Coming up, you'll hear John McMullen's take on it when the news happened in the best of the Sports Bash. Josh has the night off. Tonight on 97.3 ESPN, it's Sixers and the T-Wolves, the Flyers and the Flames at 7 o'clock over on our sister station, Rock 104.1. Download the Rock 104.1 free mobile app and listen to the Flyers games on your phone. Don't forget, Sixers tonight. It is I think it's an 8:30 tip time for the Sixers and the T-Wolves tonight. And you can hear that game right here on 97. Is it 7? What time is it? Oh, it's an 8 o'clock. It's an 8 o'clock start tonight for the Sixers and the T-Wolves. That's tonight. Coming up next, it's the best of the Sports Bash. Stick around. Have a great night, everybody.